Yeah.
All right. Good evening. The time is 5:01 p.m. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Argyle AISD Board of Trustees. It is November 18th, 2024. At this time, we will determine if a quorum is present.
Leona McDade present.
Josh Western present.
Rich McDowell present.
Leanne Artho present.
Matt Slayton present.
I, Sam Slayton, present. We do have a quorum established. The time remains 5:01 p.m. and we will adjourn to executive session. All right, good evening. The time is 6:05 p.m. We have returned from executive session. No action to be taken. So at this time, we are going to have our Pledge of Allegiance, and this is a very special Pledge of Allegiance. We not only have our friends from Argyle South Elementary, but we also like to have some people join y'all as well. So this being the closest meeting to when we had Veterans Day, we want to bring up several people and acknowledge those who aren't here tonight that are veterans that work in our district. So Mr. Rich McDowell, if you'd like to head up there for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. McDowell is an Army veteran. We thank you. We have Shannon Williams from the 6th grade center, and she is a Navy veteran. Thank you. We have Eddie Robertson. He's a bus driver here in the district. He's an Army veteran. And then we have Mr. Jason Myers in transportation. He is an Air Force veteran. And then also in our district, veterans that work in our district, Mr. Orlowski at Argyle High School, an Army veteran, Derek Grifford in administration and a computer technician. He's an Army veteran. And then Lisa Watson in admin, instructional coach, is an Air Force veteran. And then Coach Adam Myhawk in tennis, a U.S. Army Reserve for 8 years. And then Dale Frazier in transportation is also an Army veteran. So if we give another round of applause to our veterans in this district, we greatly appreciate your service to our country. So, thank you. Mrs. Haynes, if you'd like to come up and introduce the students that are here, and then whenever you're ready to begin the pledge,
all right.
Bring the veterans in. And
all right,
do
thank
this.
you for having us tonight. I have invited some of my house leaders, my 4th and 5th grade house leaders, so that's why we're wearing our colors. We have we use the Ron Clark Academy house system, and we have 4 houses: green, black, red, and blue. So the house system is a way to provide inclusion and a community feel across our campus, and they will come up and introduce themselves. Okay.
My name is Skylar Brown, and I'm a 5th grade greenhouse leader. And my favorite part about school is I get to do all the things my principal and staff organize.
Excellent.
My name's Piper. I'm a 5th grade Black House leader, and my favorite part about school is all the fun activities our staff and teachers plan for us.
My name is Collier Koch. I am a red 4th grade house leader. My favorite part about school is that I have a principal, vice principal, and teachers to look up to.
My name is Delaney. I'm a 4th grade Blue House leader, and my favorite thing about school is how good our teachers at Argyle South are.
My name is Jackson, and I'm a Blue House 5th grade leader, and I like math class with Ms. Boyle and recess.
Excellent. Let them join y'all, and y'all can lead us in the pledges.
All right,
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it.
We do a picture, yes.
Oh, okay.
Sit that way?
Everybody back up a little bit, and the board will come in right behind you.
They enjoy you.
Not me. So we just need prayer, right?
Okay.
We won't have any questions.
All right, we're having opening prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the opportunity to be here and serve. Lord, I pray that our teachers, our students, faculty, parents of this community know that this board is here to serve and serve well. And Lord, we pray that you guide us with wisdom. Lord, I thank you for our veterans that were here tonight and our veterans that work in this district, for the sacrifice that they made. Lord, I pray for our students, and I pray for their well-being, and pray that their experience in growing up here in this wonderful community, Lord, is just full of opportunities for growth and learning and socialization. And Lord, we thank you again for your Son, Jesus Christ. It's in his name we pray. Amen. All right, we did not have anyone sign up for public forum, so everyone is spared me reading all my paragraphs. All right, so we will go to the consent items. I have November donations. All right, so for the November 2024 donations, AABC $4,000 for golf balls, AABC $1,045. My screen died. There we go.
There he is, it's back.
Okay, it's back. Coach to catcher ear/helmet system. ABC $2,400 football sign replacement. Argyle Lions Club $250 for Red Ribbon Week at JRE. Argyle Lions Club $250 for Red Ribbon Week at Argyle South. Argyle Lions Club $250 for Red Ribbon Week at Hilltop. Argyle Lions Club $250 for Red Ribbon Week at Argyle West. JRE PTA $3,000 for classroom transformation materials and supplies. And Kroger $2,000 Game of the Week sponsor. Total November donations $13,445. All right, does anyone have any questions on any of the consent items? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Wester, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Leanne Artho with the quicker second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Okay,
All right, construction report.
construction.
So tonight, I've brought our team from Pogue here to do the presentations tonight. So we've got Jason Davis, our senior project manager. He's in charge of both projects. And Dale Davis is senior superintendent, also in charge of both projects. So they oversee both of the teams that are on each project. So they'll present and answer any questions you have. I'll be here as well.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys.
How's it going?
Good.
Good.
So we'll start with the stadium. Project's going really, really well. As you can see, a lot of our mass grading is done. We're ready at our concession stand, our press box, and our home parking areas. Our mass grading is already taken place. I'm sure you guys see this as you pulled into the parking lot, but that entire site has been started on. Here's our field events. This is a milestone that we'll be turning over here at the first of the year. So we've been working hard to get that done over the last month or so. But a lot of our mass grading's done there, and they're starting to pour back concrete. And there's been a lot of utility work that's been ran right through that area as well. Here's our indoor activity center. We've started doing our moisture conditioning there, and probably be done with that here in about another week and a half, 2 weeks. So that area is moving along pretty well as well.
I got a question for you on the indoor facility. Is that the same timetable as the stadium? Is it all one timetable, or are you thinking that?
It's all one timetable. I think the original schedule that we did is we had an extended month on that one. But we'll kind of get into those milestones here in just a minute, but maybe an extra month there.
On the indoor?
On the indoor. Here's where our visitor concession stand would be now. We've already started some piers in that area. Is that correct, Dale?
Yes.
This one? So we've already started a couple of piers in that area. They started Friday with piers. We got 7 of them in, and then we were kind of shut down today with the mud, so. This is kind of our milestones on the stadium. We were given our permit on September 5th. Field event locations we're going to turn over January 1st. Press box, we'll start going vertical on that thing in spring of 25, or March of 25, and then our IAC is going to start in spring of 25. I don't have an exact date for that yet, Josh, but I think that one there is, we're hoping to be able to pull that one in as well. So I think contractually it says it's got an extra month on it, but we're hoping to be able to turn it over at the same time. Our visitor grandstand there starts in spring of 25, and our home grandstands early summer of 2025. Substantial completions November of 25. That's our contractual dates currently. I know the question that's coming, and we're going to do our best for you guys. We're going to do everything that we can to impact it in a positive light. Until we get out of the wet season, it's a little challenging to commit to anything date-wise.
How's construction with kids in school?
Going pretty well so far.
Fenced in really well. It's fenced in really well, which is
Yeah.
good.
And we've got a good amount of staff on it to police it. I think we've had 1 or 2 occurrences where we had a young man pull up in our construction entrance and park one day and disappear. We couldn't find him. So, and it's just little things, but all in all, it's been really it's been good to this point.
How about the concession stands? That's all concurrent with
Yes,
the
ma'am.
restrooms and all that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We've got a
The
couple
heavy,
of.
but the heavy equipment, like when you start erecting the stadium, I mean, is that you're getting in on the backside, staying out of the campus, able to enter the site without any?
Yes.
Yeah, we've got
Cross
actually
traffic.
we got 3 entrances right now. One for our construction trailer. And we got the main one that'll be for the home side, and then we got another one for the visitor side.
Try to stay out of their line of traffic as much as possible. And that's part of the reason why we've got such a heavy staff on the project, is because we're going to have to make sure that we're keeping kids where they belong at all times. Many sets of eyes as we can possibly have on them.
Good. Thank you.
Any questions on the stadium? We'll move right into the middle school. This side is we're basically done with all of our mass grading over there. All of our cuts and fills are done. It's really pretty awesome there. If you take a look at that picture, you can see where the track will actually be laid out. So we have that thing ready to be turned over to where Hellas can do their moisture conditioning on the football field. And but all of our mass grading is basically done on the site. There's another really good picture of it. We're doing our moisture conditioning on our pad now. That'll give us the ability to start piers here. Would you say a couple weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, we're going to start piers on our pad. The site looks much different than it did 30 days ago. We got rid of all the trees and everything that was on the site.
Definitely not as much mesquite trees.
Yes. look ahead, like I said, we'll just, we're gonna continue grading, continue with utilities, and our moisture conditioning will be taking place over the next couple of weeks so we can get piers started. Town of Argyle permit, that is still to be determined. I think there's some fee things that are being discussed there. Grading completion is going to be later this month, and then our substantial completion is July of 26. And that is it. Do you guys have any questions on the middle school?
Are the material delay problems behind us?
Currently, yes. We don't expect to encounter anything major. We got out in front of a lot of those things. Believe it or not, I've already got some RTUs that are starting to show up on our middle school project. Part of that was driven by some changes on the RTUs, so we had to order them early and agree to accept them early. So that's one thing that we've got out in front of. We do have some challenges ahead of us if ports do strike and things of that nature after the first of the year, which is rumored to happen. But until it happens, I don't think we've got any challenges ahead of us. Roofing materials and things that were a problem a couple of years ago don't seem to be the case now. We're expecting steel deliveries on this one even in early spring, so I mean we seem to be out in front of the majority of our challenges. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Carpenter.
All right,
The
excellent.
floor is yours.
Perfect, thank you. Yes, it has been a strong fall semester so far in Argyle. I cannot believe that we are almost to the end of the fall semester, but we are getting closer, and it's been very successful so far. From a middle school standpoint, Argyle Middle School had 7 members of our choir make the region choir, and that's the most we've ever had at the middle school, so congratulations to our 7 members there. And then we also had 33 middle school band members either make or be named alternates for all region bands, so those numbers are definitely growing. Speaking of band, if you've been following our social media the last 3 weeks since we met last time in October, they have made a strong statement across the state. Our band went down to the 5A UIL state band competition in San Antonio 2 weeks ago, making the finals and finishing 7th. That is an incredible feat for them. Just being in 5A, really this is the first time they've officially really gotten to the state meet or the state band competition, but to actually make the finals and place like they did was incredible. So they earned a lot of respect across the state from the 5A level. Very proud of them. And then this last weekend, they were at the Band of America Grand Nationals in Indianapolis. I know Mr. Slayton, you were there. You got to see them. Miss Shannon out here saw them as well. And so Miss Knowles was there. And so we're very thankful to have the support we had there. But they did an incredible job. They placed 4th in Class 2A, which is a completely different way they classed them there, but ranked 23rd overall. They were in the top 30 of 115 to make the semifinals. So while they did not make the finals on Saturday night, incredible performance by them. So we're very proud of our band. Thank you to all of our parents. When you watch our band go to competition and the amount of people it takes to set up everything for them, we have enormous support. So thank you to everyone. And then want to congratulate Argyle High School students Leah Chaw and Jack Dillon. They are headed to the UIL Congressional Debate State Championship competition in January, so we're looking forward to them going down there. Leah placed 1st with the highest place ranking from all 3 judges in the finals, and Jack placed 3rd with high marks. So very, very excited about them. On to athletics, our girls volleyball team. They have advanced and will play in the state semifinals tomorrow night. They will be playing. In Garland tomorrow night at 6:30. So we're asking everyone to come out, show up, and be loud for the girls. And they will be at the Curtis Colwell Center. If they win tomorrow night, they will play in the state championship, which is this Saturday at noon at the Curtis Colwell Center. So we have a send-off tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. right back here for the Lady Eagles as they leave for Garland. Very excited. Congratulations to Coach Johnson and her staff and the girls for that work there. We will also be celebrating. We've celebrated our first round football win by district, defeating Frisco Emerson last Friday. And we will play Wichita Falls Memorial this Friday in the area around in Mineral Wells. So football has had a strong showing last Friday night, and we look forward to continuing that in postseason. Girls basketball is off to a great start, currently ranked number 2 in the state. And boys just got started this last week, so our winter sports are off and running as well. And then we had 14 student athletes sign national letters of intent on signing day last Wednesday in 6 different sports. And they'll continue their athletic careers in college. So congratulations to all of our students and our sponsors and our directors. Job well done again with our fall sports and fall fine arts events. From a district standpoint, I want to thank everyone that participated in the November election. I know it was a large election as it was a general election for the nation. We had in AISD 12,200 total voters covering 11 precincts. From a statewide perspective, there were 48 school funding referendums or VADERs on the November ballot across Texas, and 20 of those were successfully passed. There was a huge surge in support from our voters in the district. We had over 5,200 yes votes in comparison to last spring's bond, where we had less than 3,000 total voters. So we definitely had a large turnout at the polls this November in terms of coming out for the school funding referendum. This VADER would have been a solution to immediately compensating staff, and without it, we are preparing to bring some ideas to the board in December, but I wanted to give the board an opportunity now, just if you have any reflection on that process or direction for the district as we prepare to bring you some ideas in December.
One thing I've thought about, Dr. Carpenter, with this is obviously the support for our teachers is still needed. Financially that's not the easiest option to be able to provide at this point, but I'm wondering if getting together with the Superintendent Advisory Committee and asking for their ideas, getting thoughts from teachers on how we can support them. The need to support our educators is still out there.
Yes.
And although this referendum did not pass, there's still an exponential amount of community members that showed their support for this referendum and with their vote vocalized that teacher support's important to them. And so I know that's important to this board as well. So
Okay.
I'll add that I think anytime you're asking for a tax increase, it's just going to be a real challenge. So it doesn't come as a complete shock that the VADER was unsuccessful. And certainly in a presidential general election where you have huge turnout, you're going to have a lot of, in a tax-sensitive area, in a high-tax district where you have communities that are all taxed differently. You have communities that pay municipal taxes. You have communities that just pay county taxes. You have properties in the ETJ that pay added developer PID tax, MUD tax. And so, that's one of the unique challenges that Argyle's going to have in any bond or VADER, and we just need to recognize that. We have we're a tax-sensitive community. I think support can look a lot of different ways. You can have support and say, hey, everybody gets a raise across the board, or you can go inside the district, dig deep and go, we need support in these areas, and it's not going to be a raise, but it can be people. It can be an aide here. It can be a interventionist or something, and I'd like to see, if you don't have millions of dollars to pay raises across the board, can you really identify those areas where support staff may be needed, and you can hire 1 or 2 people to help.
Okay.
That's my feedback.
Okay.
Well, kind of in that vein, I think about really probably the last 5 years, our elementary staff had a lot put on them over capacity buildings and just taking a lot of adjusting, moving teachers around. So I know they feel stretched, and I think looking at not putting more burden next year to alleviate some of the budget constraints, but just looking to support and add the support staff back at the elementary levels if we can.
and Liz, I'll add this. I mean, one of the things that the Vader was going to do was to replenish
Yes.
The fund balance that we had, we dipped into to make the one-time payments, right?
That's correct.
And so you're gonna probably have to, knowing that that's not gonna be, the Vader's not gonna be available to replenish what we borrowed against our line of credit, you're gonna have to look at if there's any way to replenish that, or if we're just gonna have to operate with a lower fund balance.
Yes,
Yes.
we'll have to continue to look at that. You know, at some point, typically in the spring, we talk to the board about how many students we actually have, how many we're projecting for the end of the year, how that correlates with what we budgeted.
Mhm.
You know, we know we've had more students show up than what was projected this year, which puts hardship potentially on our classrooms, right, in that end. But as far as financially on the budget, it's more dollars into the budget than what we had planned. So we'll have to talk about that as well. Typically that's after the first semester's over, when we have some pretty good data in the first 3 to 6 weeks of reporting. But yes, we will have to look at how much that is, how does that affect what fund balance we used, and what percentage we need to move forward.
Okay, well, we will be working on that throughout the next several weeks, and then in December, we'll come back with some things that y'all can discuss as a board. We'll see where we are. And the last few things I had just from a community engagement standpoint, so very excited last week, we got to kick off our collaborative visioning process. This is a 6-month process that will provide a community developed set of goals, objectives, and actions in the priority areas. We have student learning, student experience, resource stewardship, and community engagement. And so we're very excited about that opportunity, as that will be more of a 5-year vision picture for the district in those areas. And then actually, Mr. Slayton mentioned the Superintendent Advisory Council teacher group. We also kicked off our student group, had the students from 7th through 12th grade with us about 3 weeks ago, and we'll continue meeting with them on some different things. Great experience for them. I think we probably got just as much out of it as they did. So we're looking forward to continuing that. I know the Just Ask Argyle questions that have been coming in, we have got the FAQ page up, and so we'll be adding those to our FAQ page under About Us. Our bond committee is going to reconvene starting in December, so that's getting close. And then tonight during our zoning presentation, we are also going to share graduation year impacts and showcase a new website that we have prepared for the transition to 2 middles and 2 high schools. So looking forward to sharing that with you this evening. And then finally, from a legislative standpoint, because that's coming up on the horizon very quickly, the first day to file bills began last week. So we are starting to see things be filed and kind of keeping a close eye on that. And then Ms. Stewart and I are attending a legislative planning session Thursday of this week in Frisco. So a lot more to come on the legislative front in the next few weeks as they prepare to open session in January. That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hudson, are you ready? I had to scan. I didn't see you.
All right. I was waiting for the signal.
All right. All right. Well, welcome.
Good evening, sir.
All right. Good evening. Board President Sladen, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity, as always, to be able to be a part of this and be able to work with you. With that said, I'll start us off here. Just briefly, I'll touch on kind of what's happened with the overall local economy related to a very healthy housing market that we're dealing with currently right now. Again, you'll kind of look at just briefly, when you look at kind of what's happened in the local economy, we are seeing a slight uptick in unemployment compared to where we were last year at this time. From a U.S. perspective, it's a little bit higher than that. It's at that 3.9 compared to 3.6 last year. That has allowed the Federal Reserve to start analyzing what they're doing with interest rates related to the federal funds, and so that really ties to some of the things that you've seen in September by them cutting that half basis point in September, and also the quarter point they did just this past week. Overall, again, kind of looking at what's happening throughout the entire country, you'll see that the Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin markets continue to be at the very top. So you see that the housing markets in the 4 regions within the state of Texas are out of the 4 out of the top 6 in the entire country. So again, when you look at locally what's happened, we are up about 11% related to starts compared to where we were even last year at this time. When we look at the year-over-year comparison kind of in related to what's happened with housing starts and closes, you'll see that we did see in the last few quarters a little bit of a slowing related to the number of closes. You'll actually see that as a part of the district's numbers when you look at the year-over-year comparison. But you'll also see in that third quarter that we just had reports on that we actually saw a surge in closings as well as starts. So again, very, very positive overall numbers that we're seeing for the region as well as the district as a whole. Then you'll look at the numbers related to individual lots and we'll track starts, closings, also futures that are out there. When we look at the overall housing picture related to closings, we are ranked 22nd out of all of the districts in the Metroplex. Actually, we're up probably in the 20th ranking related to starts. So again, a little bit better related to starts. And then if you look at the overall stack of futures, we're about 17th related to where we rank related to the number of futures that the district has over the next several years.
Hudson, can you go back for that
Yeah.
1 second? Will you talk a little bit about, I know you and I, I've asked you this question a couple times and you've been able to explain it to me. On that 7,000 future lots, we talked about, okay, that's what you know is out there. And so the things that are out there, the equestrian farms, different things that might sell later. Explain that to us a little bit, the way you explained it to me, please.
So we would anticipate that there are going to be additional lots that are going to be coming on that over the next, anywhere from 8 to 15 years out there, we will see additional futures that will be pushed in there. When we talk about the overall level of projections that are out there as we continue to build out, we would start to see some of those futures be offset by certain areas of the district starting to age and mature. So that's why when we talk about kind of where we think the district potentially could top out or level out, I always say level out, I hate to reference anything else other than that, that really ties to that balance of where those future lots may come on related to what the age of some of those developments that we see currently right now that have significantly higher yield. Those yields most likely would be coming down in future years.
Right.
Okay, but that 7,020 doesn't include any multifamily. That's lots, like residential, single family
That is
lots.
correct.
It doesn't include any multifamily.
That is correct.
That you, I think, track in this report.
Yes.
Related to First Ranch, Hillwood, and out at Harvest and other areas.
Yes, sir. So if we do kind of a comparison quarter over quarter, you'll see where we stand related to overall starts. Again, fairly strong when you look at the overall start picture. So anticipating that with our numbers that will come in the fourth quarter, most likely our overall starts will exceed where we were in 22 and 23. Most likely will not be at that 2021 level. But if you just go there to the right, or you'll see where we're at with closes. Again, I would point to, if you look at the year over year, we were down year over year related to closes from the first and second quarter, but you can see that surge that I referenced with what happened regionally, where a significant increase in that third quarter of 238 closes.
Okay, so I want to put a little conclusion on this little slide here. You're saying that in terms of housing starts, that your data is telling you in 2024, we're going to have the second highest number of housing starts that we've ever had in this district. And the only year that you've been able to identify that was higher was in 2021 when we were in a zero interest rate climate.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you go over to closings. You also track actual closings, and these are these existing homes or new homes?
Those would be new homes.
These are new homes.
Yes, sir.
This doesn't include.
It's not inventory.
Right.
Yeah, existing inventory. So this is new home closings, and we're going to have. By the time you add in fourth quarter, you think we're going to be maybe the second highest?
I could see us being in that, somewhere in that 700 to 720. So I would say we most likely would be level, potentially level with where we were in close to the level in where we were in 2023. Might be a little bit down, but not as high as we were in 2022.
But you would see that Q1 of 2025 would be very strong.
Right.
Yes.
Because of the, yeah.
Agreed.
But I mean, if you just go back to 2020, I mean, we were closing 420 houses, less than 500 a year, new houses. And ever since then, we're closing, since 22, we're closing 700-800 a year.
Right, and that's
I mean, percentage-wise, that's 20%.
That's with higher interest rates.
More
too.
than
Yeah,
40%.
I was gonna say the
Huh?
difference of
It's been in a very, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
difference of interest rates
and
there
back
there
in-
is-
And that really ties
Basis
to,
points.
yeah, that, the reason why we had that in 2022, really the historic pace we had was related to those historically low interest rates. But we've also had some strong showings even in the face of challenging interest rate conditions. When you look at 749 closes in the total year of 2023, and then again, I would still say being in that range of a little over 700 homes. Again, we've seen interest rates as of October of 2023 was the peak of where we saw interest rates. They were in the high sevens. That has come down over the last year in anticipation of some cuts that were somewhat, as they referenced in some term, baked in. So that has been baked in. They did anticipate that taking place, and that happened in that September 2024 timeframe, just a couple of months ago.
Do you put a yield on that number, that closing number?
I don't have that yield. I couldn't tell you that right now, but I could tell you it would be.
0.7?
It's going to be it'd be 0.6, 0.7, somewhere in that range.
And we used to hear, and I'm just asking if this still holds true. So back in 18 through 21, we would hear that for every 1,000 closings, you need an elementary school. So we could see that, like, okay, every 2 years, we're going to need an elementary school. So now that we're pushing 700 to 800 new closings, does that still fit? But I mean, every 1,000 closings, you potentially need an elementary school.
I think if you the every other year at the pace we've been, it may be closer to every year and a half. So I would say it could have it potentially, because of some of those numbers and how aggressive they've been, that they could have sped us up a little bit, but we're not that far off track of what that initial assessment was.
So, okay. I'm not trying to get into bonding here, but just looking at the need for a rapid growth district and the district's needs for facilities for children to have seats. So
yeah,
and
no,
how,
I
and
think
how we know construction-wise time, you've got to have 3 to 4 years from passing a bond to opening the doors, but we're needing schools every year and a half to 2 years. So being able to look out far enough and then plan a bond plan around that, like it's a lot. So
the timetables related to design and construction have definitely changed over the years. There's no doubt that's become way more complicated than it used to be. So absolutely.
And so what happens next year if interest rates continue to get cut? Do we see a 2022 start number maybe?
The challenge that I would say, or what should help us, is the pace of development and the pace of lots being delivered. So that should kind of keep things fairly restricted as to how many lots are available to build on. But that we could still see a little bit of a surge if we still saw market conditions that are extremely attractive. And this area, when you look at our numbers compared to many others in the region, ours are much more positive than they are in other areas, for certain.
okay.
So again, this is our general breakdown, just showing activity by each of the attendance zone areas. Russman, by what's taking place in the Ridge, is a big contributing factor as to why that is as high as it is in that general region. That's followed by Hilltop when you look at a couple of those developments that are to the north that we'll highlight here shortly, as well as the third rung there related to number of activities in that Argyle South region. Again, when you take into consideration all of those lots that are available in the southern area of the district with La Estancia, as well as the futures that are out there for First Ranch, you'll see that's that 6,000 that we have out there. That's a large contributor to that overall future number that we referenced previously. So as a whole, the district has 28 active building subdivisions throughout the district. We do have 16 futures, and so we also have some groundwork underway on 6 subdivisions throughout the entire district. So again, talking through kind of what's available. There was over 600 vacant developed lots that we currently have to build on, but we would be looking for an additional 900 lots that would be delivered in the next several quarters. One of those small ones is kind of off into the western section of the district. This is Argyle Landing. It'll be a development that's going to be split between Argyle and Northwest ISD. The larger percentage of lots is on the northwest side, but we have 50 of those that are in district. Groundwork is underway. You can see the roads and lots being established there. Centurion American is the developer, and we do think that this is going to be a combination of D.R. Horton and Our Country Homes that's going to be building in this area. In the overall harvest development, we have townhomes that are being developed. We've got 70 vacant developed lots that remain within that area. We've got 16 townhomes that are under construction currently right now. There's 4 that are in inventory. When we look at the occupied number of townhomes that are in there, we show that we've got 34 students. So again, we reference that yield of how many students are coming out of each one of, if we assessed 10 homes, 10 units, that would mean get between 2 to 3 students coming out of every 10 of those homes or units within that development. The Ridge, again, the most active currently within the district currently right now, large, 374 future lots that are currently under development. You've got 40 vacant developed lots that are currently there. A significant amount of activity taking place within that overall development of 117 homes that are showing to be under construction. And then we do show that there are 503 that have been occupied just in the last year to year and a half, it seems. And so a fairly significant yield when you look at that overall number of 0.92. So that means for every home that is built, you just about have a student for every home that's in that overall development.
And again, 0.9 is rocket ship.
I know I've said this before.
I just want to say
our traditional yield that we reference in most districts and most reports that we provide, the historic yield is somewhere between 0.4 and 0.6. And so we may sometimes get into that 0.6 to 0.7. Referencing some of these yield numbers are just not what we normally see in most districts.
And so give the community, because I hear a lot about our demographic reports, and I try to explain. I mean, it's really the only planning document that we have when it comes to staffing. I mean, I think it's what the superintendents use. When it comes to building bond packages, it's heavily relied upon and stuff like that. So, but you're with Zonda, right?
Yes.
And Zonda does how many school districts around North Texas?
Oh, I would say we work with well over 120 school districts in the state of Texas every year.
Okay, and are you working with our neighboring school districts around? What neighboring school is it okay to ask you, right?
Yes, I mean we're working in Northwest. We've got many of the North Texas regions, like your Prospers. I mean, we've got several that we work with.
I saw you in Southlake at one point. I don't know if
Yes.
you're still doing it. I seen you in Coppell. Because I've looked at
Yes,
their demographics, I've seen you do those.
we do Capel.
Okay.
So yes, I would say there's Denton is, we do the Denton work,
So you not only know what's going on within Argyle, you're tracking what's going on in the immediate out boundaries of Argyle ISD.
Yes.
Denton and Northwest. Okay, maybe not Flower Mound. I don't know if you do Flower Mound. Or
We have Louisville, yes.
You do
Yeah,
Louisville.
yes.
So every
Everyone it
adjacent.
touches, yeah.
It's a, yes, sir. It's a long list of who we're fortunate to be able to work with.
Yeah,
yes.
it's awesome. And you're telling me that in those districts that surround Argyle, that you're seeing more of a 0.5, 0.6 type yield in those districts, Northwest, Denton, Flower.
In many of the developments in those districts. And so the other thing that I would reference is because of the reputation of the district, what we don't typically see is some of the price points for some of the homes and some of the developments. That traditionally has pointed to a lower yield. So we normally don't have developments that have $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 price points where you have yields that would be 0.7, 0.8, 0.9.
Which you are getting in Argyle, though.
But we are seeing that here.
And so you come into Argyle and you're going, it's not uncommon. I mean, Harvest has been running at that clip ever since it started in 2014, 15, right?
Yes.
Canyon Falls was a little less, but still pretty above average.
Yes.
And then Ridge comes on and it's running as high as any of them.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, no, so we have these conversations because and we'll even have a conversation a few weeks ago where the administration reaches out because they're finding out a potential development that may be platted and may be considered. And so they're asking what should the yield be? And so what we would typically do is say somewhere in that 0.5, 0.6 range in almost every scenario. But given where we're at, we have to look at somewhere in that range of 0.7 to 0.8.
And so if I was planning for 0.5 or 0.6 in Argyle when you're building the bond package or doing staffing, we'd be making a mistake.
I think the thing that we need to do is continue to work and monitor those, because the one thing that I would continue to be a little bit more conservative is at some point in time we will start to reach a point where the overall developments are going to begin to mature and some of that yield is going to it will start to come down. So I think that's the challenge that we want to work towards, is to make sure that we're planning for all of those students that would be coming in over the next several years, but also evaluating where the district may mature and top out and not build too much square footage for an never-ending type of number.
That's where you need the crystal ball.
Some version of that, yes, sir. So up in the northern section here, we've got Glenwood Meadows, again, 143 total lots. A few vacant developed lots that are up there. They do have 41 futures that are in that currently right now. Again, when you look at the 63 homes that are in that, we do see that we have the 52 students there, so giving us a yield of 0.825. And then again, just to the south, that's Vintage Village, 118 total lots. They do have quite a bit of the overall development that's yet to be built in. 16 homes currently under construction right now. So a 1.2 yield for that one. So again, this is early in the overall development. There's still a lot that will be built out, so it potentially could come down in yield. But again, that's
it'll come down?
I know. I'm like, did we move? And
Did
I
the
didn't-
Arthos move?
Yeah. So I know. Like I said, this is.
I mean, is that
unique.
statistically significant when you sit there and go, I got, let's see, how many 10
118
occupied homes
total
and 12
lots.
kids? And you're going, hey, I can project out what this neighborhood's gonna do, or are you saying?
The sample size is still fairly small,
Yeah.
so I would still go back and reference that there are some historical trends where we would think that number should be coming down. So again, I would still say something that we will track and someone will remember a year from now when we talk about this again, and we'll evaluate that yield number to be able to reference it, whether that came down or whether it went up. So.
Okay.
All right, with that said, I'll go on to the next slide. Again, talking about Flower Mound Ranch, It is broken into two sections, that being Hines and Oak Stream. Hines is the newer area that we do anticipate the most activity taking place. You can see that they actually have significant development taking place currently right now in that phase one, just south of the middle school campus currently right now. It's got about 300 lots in that portion of it. They do think that there will be some multifamily that will be a part of this overall development, but that potentially is going to be several years out. So, and right now, based off of the projections and the information we get from the builder, they are saying that they will be building approximately 150 to 200 homes per year.
So what should, I mean, this is putting you on the spot here. I mean, if I'm sitting here looking at, I said, these lots are, I can see them. They're there. I can see the lots on the ground. They're not streets in, but what's a good planning number for yield coming out of there based on what you've been seeing historically in Argyle?
The price points are going to be extremely high. So from what they're sharing with us, it could be 900 to $1 million. So it is going to be higher price points. So again, the first reaction to that would be to say that we should have a little lower yield out of that. But again, I have to say that I will still probably average that a little further up than what we have traditionally in other areas.
So you're talking easily one, maybe a little over one?
I would never put one. I would reference somewhere in that range of anywhere from 0.7 to 0.8. I think that's I think going anything above that would be.
Is that what you use basically when you're looking at the zoning too? Is that what you kind of use for them?
Again, price points do figure into this a little bit. So if we had an area that is going to be in that 300 to 425,000 range, then those typically I'm gonna say those are going to be that higher 0.85, 0.9 range for the district. When we're talking close to $1 million, that should be a little less.
Do you know who the home builder is in this community yet? I mean, the $1 million price point sounds pretty high to me, but.
Again, I can only share that that's what the developer from Hines shared with us.
I mean, that's a lot of how. I mean, just to me, I don't see very many master planned communities with 1,200 to 1,500 homes planned that the price point's going to be $1 million. You're going to get a lot of variety. You're going to get little pods in there. You know, you may have 500,000, 700,000, 900,000, over $1 million. I mean, I think you're going to get a big mixture in there. You're not going to get a uniform.
And that very well could be. But right now, I can only tell you what I know that he shared with us that referenced that price range, and it was close to $1 million.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I think they're ambitious when they go in.
Certainly.
Yeah, we want $1 million for every house, and then they find out the market. There's not $1 million market for 1,200 homes.
Right.
And so they adjust, and they have a variety of price points in there, like
Sure.
every other large community, whether it's Lantana, Harvest, Canyon Falls. You know, that's what you see.
The other thing I would point out is in our conversations with Oak Stream, they are referencing that we would anticipate most of the Hines development being built out before we actually will start to see the Oak Stream portion of the development start to those lots starting to kick in. So referencing potentially that it is about 5 years out. Most likely in that 2029 time frame would be when they would start to break ground, or at least start to look to deliver their first group of lots. And the only thing I would reference when we talk about multifamily is you'll see kind of the occupancy rates have come down when you look at the greater Metroplex from where they were back in their highs back in that 2022-23 time frame. So that has come down about 5%. If you look at that unit change year over year, you'll see that that second row of that first column of 37,217 units delivered. So that just tells you how much additional supply was brought into the marketplace over the last year. So part of that is really tied to supply and demand, surge in supply, and a little bit less demand that's there. So with that said, we would anticipate some of the multifamily that has been in the planning stages may still be a little bit further out. And then when we look at this, and this is just two small developments that are referenced there. One is a part of Harvest. The other one that's to the further north was a property that I believe was platted. That's I think it's called Brush Creek. Again, they're conceptually out there, potentially about 450 total units as a part of that. I would anticipate that the Harvest development that's a little over 200 units may be happening before the development to the north.
Well, let me tell you, on the development to the north, that's currently going before the city of Denton this week or next week, and it's actually going before the city as a 18-acre development with a proposed 42 homes.
That's the new one that's the new one that we just got finished having the conversation.
Yeah,
about.
I don't think that.
I didn't know it, but yeah, we weren't certain. Like when we talked, if it was going to be that section or if it was one of the adjacent.
For years,
properties.
they've tried to get multifamily there, and I think they're now going back and they're trying to get 40-something homes on 18 acres.
So,
that's what did you see that? That's what I saw.
Yeah,
yes.
I knew they wanted to do multifamily for a long time.
Okay.
So if that plat is approved, that would definitely change what we report in the future related to that property. We knew that it was something that was still continuing to be pushed off. Overall, when we look at the development related to BB Living that we had opened this past year, one of the surprises was when we looked at yield specifically for this development. It is 191 total rental units. We had 80 students in that, so you've got a yield of 0.419. So when we saw what we've seen in districts like Northwest and several others, the yield was closer to 0.2. So we are seeing a difference related to what we're seeing related to the number of students in BB Living. We do track, as we referenced, I think in the report last year, newcomers and leavers. So this is information that we track related to first grade through 11th grade. We track student IDs to identify any new student IDs that potentially are coming in, and year over year student IDs that are not repeated helps us be able to evaluate the number of students that came in that were new to the district versus those that left the district. And again, very, very positive. When we looked at the 23-24 numbers, we did have less newcomers that came in than we had leavers, but it was a smaller margin than what we had. And you can see with the numbers that we had this year with our overall enrollment increases, a significant change in that 24-25 year.
So newcomers are ones that come in, you've never seen their ID number before.
That is correct.
And the leavers are the ones that leave the district for various reasons.
Yeah, we've had their ID number at some point.
At some point.
And we take 12th grade out and we take the kindergartens out,
Yeah.
kindergarten numbers, because those are just naturally newcomers and leavers. So
Right, okay.
to not skew the data.
So this is first grade through 10th grade?
First grade through 11th grade.
Could be. Anytime we've had any student where we've had their ID number at some point is considered a leaver. If we haven't ever had their ID and they're considered a newcomer. So it's stayed pretty, I mean, it stays anywhere from the 38 to 50, you can kind of see 50% there. And so our average is about 40.75%. So it's staying pretty steady across year over year.
Again, we'll track the numbers as we've seen the last several years. You'll see kind of in yellow the largest grade groups. We identify those just to see where those are in relation to graduation. Also green references that second largest grade group for each individual year. You'll see that we did have a growth of 687 students this past year. I would also point out that when you look at the year-over-year comparison, when you look at your pre-K numbers, there is a significant difference in our pre-K, being that partly tied to the capacity, available capacity with the opening of the new elementary school. That helped contribute to that significant difference. Again, we had several other factors that played into that. Again, the reference to where we were at with yield for BB Living was a factor as a part of that. In combination with, we do also have, if families are building in the district, building a home, they are allowed to transfer in early to come into the district. So those factors, those pull-throughs do factor into a little bit larger increase than what we would have anticipated. Also, I'll just point out kind of the cohort increases and decreases that we have there at the bottom. Anything that's above a 1 is a positive. So for Argyle, with as much growth that is there, other than your 12th grade group, you're going to have all positives across the board. And when you look at the most significant increases that are taking place, you've got first, second, and third grades have some of the largest increases, and all of those grade group cohorts from that year-over-year comparison. So taking all that into consideration, we do evaluate our grade level increases year over year the next several years. We are referencing a projection of about 503 student increase going into next year, potentially 560 and upwards to potentially that 700 cap at that 9% range by the time we get to that 28-29 year. Again, we could see a part of this is going to be evaluating when that the Oak Stream portion of the Flower Mound Ranch development starts to kick in. We'll factor into these numbers as we get into 29, 30, 30, 31, and 31, 32. But again, we would start to see things start to level out as you get to the 33, 34, 34, 35 time. That's when we start to see the district potentially start to mature in some of these early developments that are currently extremely high yield beginning to mature, and that's starting to level out.
Do you see the majority of the single-family homes in First Ranch happening on that northern end as opposed to the southern end? I know he's got a lot of multifamily, he's got a lot of corporate, retail, you know, all the other things that they want to include on that southern end of the ranch, but are you anticipating on any of the discussions any more of these larger single-family chunks of or areas where they're going to be building those?
Related to the Oak Stream portion of the development?
No, below that. I mean, after the Hines and the Oak Stream stop.
Potentially, there could be some of that. We don't really have any of that accounted for in some of these numbers.
Okay.
What indicator are you picking up on based? I mean, because I just went through new housing starts and closings, record high. They're not record highs, but certainly competing with some of the highest years. But why does all that positive indicator, all these new homes coming online, future lots, indicate to you that we're going to go from 12% growth to 8% growth?
I mean, it's not necessarily. I wouldn't reference it specifically to a percentile. It's normally based off of, we'll evaluate that total growth. We're taking that into consideration, all those grade groups that are coming through and the cohort increases. We're averaging those out, so that's a part of the overall formula, not just the new housing. So that's
8% because it's a bigger number.
That's correct.
It's still 500 kids, but
yes, sir.
We're 6,600. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But that would be no, you're looking at, but over here, it would be the.
And that's a pretty significant.
But I would still point to, we're still anticipating with some of those, many of those lots that are still going to be coming on, we still could potentially have a year where we could have 630 to 700 students in several of our future years that we're talking about, several years out.
It's a percent.
I mean,
a larger number.
Your job, I mean, you're in the prediction business, which just means you're going to be wrong. Okay, I mean, honest. I mean, you're trying to be right.
The weatherman.
I get. Trust me. Yes, absolutely. At the house as well, but yes.
But
yes,
I mean,
sir.
if I really were you really put a district in a bind, is if you overshoot the number in some ways, because then we're planning, we're staffing, we're building, and then we come in under. That's not good.
Agreed.
So you need to, so I'm saying, like, if I'm in your business, I'm sitting there going, I'm trying to be right, but I don't want to overshoot that number. I want to, if I'm going to miss, I want to miss low. I mean, am I
No.
being fair?
And I would say, so and many times we'll even talk through providing a range. So we can evaluate a range, and typically whenever we're talking to districts about a range, we're going to reference the fact that I want to give you a little bit higher range for facility and classroom capacity, but from a district perspective, analyzing budgets and staffing year over year, I want to provide as conservative a number as possible, because I want to make sure that preferably you come in at or above where our projections potentially would be from a budget or staffing perspective.
Sure. At or above. That's where we want to be. Now, when I look at these projections out over year, are you sitting there going, hey, I feel real good about next year. I feel pretty good about year 2. You know, solid on year 3. But as we start getting further away, you know, it gets a little bit less reliable.
Oh, I would certainly say that gives you when we're looking at numbers anywhere from 2 to 5 years out, we anticipate those futures and things coming online, building activity taking place like we're referencing it today. As we get further out in that 5 to 10 year time frame, then that's when we're starting to talk about these conceptual futures that are out there, and economic conditions, all kinds of factors can weigh into when those potentially could come online, which could potentially compromise some of those numbers.
Hey, these are,
I feel like as we have the last few years, we may have a few years where we're up a little bit and a few years where we're down, but overall on trend, we should still maintain that positive, those positive numbers like we've been seeing.
yeah, thank you.
So when you, and I don't have my last year's on me, but when you compare this to last year, and I know you always get more information because you're hearing about more developments or certain numbers come into better focus because, you know, you've got some history and,
Right.
you know, numbers that you can look at, but are these trends basically staying the same, like this 12 down to 8%?
Well, I mean, when we looked at, so I'll go back to this yield reference that I looked at. When we looked at the numbers that we had, where we had a little bit lower number in the previous year compared to where we projected.
Right.
That partly tied to the number of homes that closed in combination with the number of students that came in that year, dropped our anticipated yield that for those homes that closed over that time frame that typically would have been like a fall to fall related to when we're evaluating those closing numbers. So that when we start to see those numbers start to come down, we would start to say, okay, this should become a little bit closer to our traditional yield. So we ought to potentially drop those yields down a little bit lower, which is what we started to do. And then, like I said, a contributing factor to some of those numbers being different than where we had them, partly tied to the pre-K. And if we would have had that conversation, and I should have referenced that as to, is that a potential, could that potentially happen, that would have increased some of those pre-K numbers in our projections, because we have the capacity and are able to do that. So that's, again, that was a miss on my part related to evaluating that pre-K number of what we should be anticipating for this year. Other than that, I would say I would have stayed fairly conservative with where we were.
Right.
Again, our goal was to make sure that we stayed, the district got at or above where our enrollment projection was for this coming year.
As far as the futures with the impeding, I guess, vouchers and school choice and things that are coming, do we have any indication of what that could do for enrollment numbers?
Yeah, that's about as complicated as you can get. So the only thing that I could share with you is when you look at your overall trend and you look at your newcomers and leavers and what you see happening in the district, that challenge may be things that your neighboring districts are dealing with. I don't anticipate that should factor much into your numbers. And I would say from the standpoint of if that does start to factor into the numbers in any way, shape, or form, the district would have the ability to evaluate if they wanted to increase numbers to offset any of those. because some of your neighboring districts would, some of your neighbors to the north, south, east, and west most likely would be interested in also being a part of Argyle ISD. So all that to say, I think there are going to be challenges related to numbers and what choice potentially would be, but I don't know that that's going to be a big factor for Argyle ISD at this point in time.
And one of the things why I think when if vouchers gets rolled out, what I had seen at past legislative sessions was that they were going to implement this program with a cap of $500 million, which was going to be roughly about 50,000 students across the state. So, if they get $10,000 a kid, that's 50,000 kids get it, and then they start a waiting list of some sort. So I don't know what the new bills will look like, but every bill in the past sessions, so 50,000 kids is probably not going to have much impact immediately in
Right.
Argyle, because you have 5.5 million kids in the state.
We're not. I wouldn't reference that that's anything that we need to be concerned about
Significant. Yeah.
in the next year or two. But yes, any changes in what they propose in combination with the next several years, we'll see what those trends are and be able to start evaluating that and discussing that with the district as to if we need to apply different numbers related to some of these future numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So then, this is just the campus breakdown. So when we look at those numbers and we apply the enrollment numbers to each of the elementaries, the intermediate school campus, as well as the Argyle Middle School campus and high school, you see the year-over-year comparison for each one of those. The challenge that's out there is related to enrollment with Russman at that potential 915 total students. Have had discussions with the administration on that a little bit. Part of that is evaluating that capacity at at that elementary campus, and there may be some program changes and shifts that could happen from that elementary to one of the adjacent elementaries to help offset that. But that most likely is going to be the largest challenge that we currently have. You can see with all the activity taking place in that Russman attendance zone where we would anticipate those overall numbers potentially getting. Again, with all the activity taking place and with all those futures at the south, that contributes to significant numbers as you get into those later years after you get to 27, 28 into 28, 29.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you should have West and Russman with that level of difference going into next year. I mean, even this year, but looks like there's going to have to be some thought put into that going forward. You have schools that close there to serve those communities. It's not ideal. We just zoned it. But, yeah.
It's again seeing the surge with yield that we saw in Russman was a little different than what we would have anticipated. So that has contributed to a significant number to that elementary.
And that was 200 kids, the difference?
More than that, 250.
At opening.
It is, and the pre-K also factored into that number a little bit, but yes, it was a significant different number anticipated than what we see. So then we just get to summary, referencing we have had 687 additional students from last year. Housing starts are on pace to eclipse kind of where we were in that 2022-23 timeframe. We do have activity out there with 600 lots that are available to build on. When you take into consideration those developments that we talked about, that's potentially bringing on an additional 900 lots in 6 of those subdivisions. And again, when we look at that overall projection of where we think enrollment's going to be, we think we could be around 9,100 students by the time we get to 29-30 and 11,300 in that 34-35 time frame.
And Hudson, again, when you're referencing we've increased this year by 687 kids, That's from your snapshot date of October 15th, or?
It's from the data that we got from the district that we're referencing our
October,
year-over-year comparison with.
So we've grown higher than 687
Right.
since October. So, although we're not talking about a long time ago.
It is, and in a district like Argyle, like we're talking about the numbers, those numbers are growing just about every month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hudson.
I appreciate it.
I think we're up next anyway. Thank you. Yeah, very good. All right. So we're gonna move into information only, and Hudson again will be presenting, and I've got several things to interject in here. Before he gets started, I just wanna say that as we get ready to look at the recommendation for middle school and high school boundary considerations, I wanna be very clear, we do not take this process lightly. Ms. Stewart and myself specifically have been working with Hudson for about 8 months. Specifically, the last 7 months, when we talked about the May board meeting, that we were going to be looking at zoning either this fall or next fall. It has been an ongoing conversation. We've had spent a lot of time with him talking through those guiding parameters, and so just wanted to be very clear with that. I know when we did the elementary zones last year, that next day, I think we had some comments made to us that I wouldn't repeat here tonight, but I wanted to make sure everyone understood how intentional this process is, so that they understand the why behind it. But there will be no perfect scenarios, and so as we go through this, we're going to go through our guiding parameters, because I think those are very important to understand why we're recommending what we're recommending. So I will let you, which I think you just presented on this piece. So.
Yeah, this is a good starting point, just from the standpoint of we do take into consideration our projections. So what you'll see are projections by area. When we talk about kind of a starting place, it is based off of where we've got related to overall projections year over year for the next several years. We combine that with the build-out models that we have that's in the mapping software. So we have those numbers are applied to each of those individual planning areas or parcels within the overall district. So with those developments, when we're talking about these things taking shape and coming online at that contributing numbers, that's where we get some of the numbers that we're projecting out over the next 3, 5, 10 years. So with that said, next slide.
Just as we're looking, we just wanted to make sure this is a whole picture. So although we're not looking at elementary boundaries tonight, this is currently what we have. So just a historical of when we approved those, December of 23, when we were preparing to open up Rustman Elementary. And so we continue to look at those. There will be conversations, obviously, this spring between administration and the board. We'll be talking about that and some ideas that we're generating to address that as we prepare and wait for Elementary 5 to come online. But just from a big picture standpoint, when we're looking at these, we always keep in mind everything from pre-K to 12 as we're working through, knowing our elementaries are coming online faster than anything else.
So, we do take into consideration several factors when we're evaluating what we are going to propose here this evening. We do want to evaluate capacities each one of those campuses, so making sure that we understand what those future projections may be and how that potentially could impact each of those capacities. Again, evaluating established developments and communities within various different pockets of the district, trying to make sure we don't have splits in the middle of those, if at all possible. We will evaluate your railroads, your major roads, thoroughfares. All of those do factor into where we're going to potentially break down those boundaries. And again, transportation factors in. We want to make sure that the administration has looked over all the different possibilities. One of the factors that the district will be dealing with for quite some time is going to be construction activity. And so evaluating what's the best potential proposed solution related to those boundaries and your buses that are going to be coming back and forth between certain areas of the community and the campuses, and make sure those are as efficient as possible. So,
and is 377, is that starting in 27,
It's
starting
supposed to
in
be
28?
bidding. It's supposed to be bidding it in 25. So we're expecting
Completion by 28. Is that what they're doing?
29.
Yeah, if you want me to really squirm, that's probably one of the things to squirm that I would squirm about, just because we have tried to tie them down to some completion dates, and as you would imagine, that has been a little challenging. Anticipating that it most likely would be closer to 28, 29. So
Our understanding is their utility work is on schedule right now, and they're expecting to bid the projects in the spring of 25. So that right now apparently is still in time.
Well, there's nothing on schedule as it relates to 377.
Well, but I mean, from what the last article we have,
Okay.
that timeline, that's where they are. Now, I wasn't here for when all this started many years ago, but
Yeah, I mean, that right-of-way was sold for 377 in 2020, so they acquired all the right-of-way to widen it in 2020. We're about to start 2025. They're just now, you're seeing poles move and utilities move. They got a lot more to move before they can start the widening project. So, I mean, it's gonna start probably next year, but, you know, it has gotta be a 3-year project.
the utility relocation process is always something that takes a significant amount of time. And so that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to know when that start time potentially would be, because we could still be a good year and a half to 2 years out before we do see that.
I think they're
that
gonna
level of
start
activity.
next year based on my workload.
25 or 26?
I think they could start next year. I mean, again, they've had the right of way, but there's an Atmos gas line that's in the way. And Atmos needs to acquire the easements to move that line into, and they haven't acquired all those easements. And that's why you see Fifth Gear Automotive saying they're moving. It's because there's gonna be a gas line that's going through there.
right there.
I think they got bought out. And so they're acquiring that all the way down, and then when that gas line gets out of the way is when TxDOT's gonna most likely start. But they haven't even acquired the easements to move the gas line yet.
One of the things that we talked about with the board in the workshop back in May was knowing that we didn't have, with the bond failure in May, we knew what our capacities were moving forward. And so we knew what we had, and that was one of the tasks that we gave Hudson, was knowing what those capacities are. How can you get us as far, the furthest extent possible, before either needing to rezone again or add capacities or third building options. So that was really our number one driver in those conversations as we moved into that. And then also, I mean, the railroad track situation, we've got people crossing and doing all sorts of things all day long. Everyone experiences that. That was a huge consideration for us. And then obviously the 377 expansion, and knowing the next 5 years are gonna look like with potentially with that project. So those were probably the key pieces to most of our conversations. Would you agree?
Yes.
As we work through that? Okay.
So what we're gonna see is based on current building capacities.
Correct.
Well, all 7 of those factors.
Yeah, all seven of
All seven,
all seven of
right.
the factors. And so what you'll see here, the dotted line, that's representing 377 and pretty much most of our railroad tracks. And so just to give the visual of what we were looking at there. And then in terms of trying to get as far out as we can with our current capacities. So those are those 7 parameters.
And what I want, go ahead.
With the areas that we were referencing here, you can see, again, roads, the 377 railroad tracks is a significant contributor. You will see kind of in that northern section nearest potentially where the middle school and ultimately potentially that second high school existing campus will be, where we reference some adjacencies where we would propose to keep that area, potentially keep that into our 377 campus. But you'll see areas related to the Ridge, Harvest, Canyon Falls, La Estancia, the future development that's there, Trailwood, and then to the north, Vintage Village and Glenwood Meadows, all being proposed to be in that Canyon Falls, at the middle school, 407, potentially ultimately fitting into that Canyon Falls High School area, and then all other portions of the district, including that Flower Mound Ranch overall development, potentially going to a 377 middle school and ultimately the 377 high school. Again, evaluating that, again, you'll see kind of where that ties into making sure that we didn't split communities, identifying kind of the importance of where those are related to the roads, the main roads, and all that construction activity that most likely is going to be happening over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years out.
And we talked about a complete east-west, but what happened when we were looking at that as far as the numbers and the capacities is it put too many over in the purple section on the west side, and so we were trying to make sure we didn't have as big of a gap in between the east and the west. And those being crossing Harpole right there in that area was what we pulled back over.
So, in order to propose evaluating potential adjustments and transitions that potentially would be taking place, we evaluated the middle school logistics as well as we'll talk through the high school logistics. Long term, 6th graders would remain at the 6th grade center located at that 800 Eagle Drive location. You'll see that they would stay there until we actually have potentially a new middle school number 2 that would potentially open in several years that would be potentially needed in that 2029 timeframe. Again, I would say when you look at these projections, we're talking about where we think we need that school most likely would be in that 2029-30 timeframe.
So reiterating, and Jeff's in here, it's 4 years to build a middle school from the second you pass a bond.
Jeff, is that what we're facing?
We passed a bond in 22, and we're hoping to have a school in 26.
Right, I'm talking about second middle school though.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying, I mean, it took us
Yes.
4 years to build, or
Right.
hopefully the last one, but, and what I'm looking at here is both middle school and high school boundaries are they're the same.
We would
Correct.
propose
It's a true feeder right now.
It's a true
ultimately trying to get to a true feeder, specifically for the middle and high schools. With elementaries, that's going to be a challenge for many years to come. But for our purposes related to planning, identifying a boundary that would be for both the middle and the high schools.
And a true feeder in our district with the amount of elementary schools that will be coming online, you're not going to be able to have a true feeder with elementary schools. But with this, you're saying middle school and high school
Would be aligned.
will be aligned.
Yes,
Okay.
certainly the way
Which
we
is what our
evaluate all the
directors
numbers.
and they have asked. I mean, that was the one request they asked for as much as they could, is that we have alignment there for activities and things like that. And that red portion, that's just indicating that if middle school 2 is bonded and built and opened ideally in 2029, then those 6th graders then move to that campus, and so your overall 6th grade center numbers go back down because they would join, which was my understanding when I came on. One middle school was going to have 6th graders with it, and one would be paired with the 6th grade center, and so that is demonstrating that.
All right, so this is a lot of numbers. I'm glad. So when I'm looking at the bottom part here with the chart, and it says Argyle 377 6th grade campus 20 26 27, it says 155, right? Are you with me, Hudson? Argyle 377
Yes.
6th grade campus year 26 27, it says
Yes.
155.
And so
They
what
go
I
with
would clarify
407.
is there is not anticipated to be an Argyle 377 6th grade campus. So what I would point to is because of the mapping software and the way we got our breakdowns, I had to break down the 6th grade intermediate campus and the 7th and 8th grade campus. So when you look at the numbers, you're really looking at the numbers combined related to the 377 campus, because that would be a 6 through 8 assessment of what you would need for a facility. But because of our mapping software and numbers, that's how we worked through that with the
All the
administration.
6th graders were still together at that
The
point.
6th graders are staying together until potentially that 2029 year.
So do I add up the year 26 27? Do I take the 407 plus the
Yes.
155?
Correct.
And that's the total number of 6th graders in the district.
That is correct.
And are we saying that, so that's 500, that's 650 kids.
I mean, the capacity that's listed on that campus is 730.
Yeah. I just tell you that you talk to the people on the streets and they don't believe it.
I understand.
So, okay, I just want to make sure, because I mean,
That
these
is
numbers
our
are coming in.
reality.
Absolutely.
Thankfully, I have a month
Right.
to
Look through it.
look at it here, but, okay.
And these numbers ultimately, when you look at the overall year-over-year comparison, it's going to reflect what you have in the projections that you have in our overall demographic report. Those numbers year-over-year line up with what you're seeing here. I don't know, do we have the next slide that'll
yes,
show?
sir.
And just to throw more numbers at you, this shows kind of a breakdown. So what I would say is this is not necessarily what I would call related to projections. What we're trying to do is identify the percentages that we could see based off of that map software. If you look at it by campus and by grade over the next 10 years, what would we estimate that grade group looking like from one year to the next? So it gives you an idea when we start talking about the logistics of potential transitions from one campus to another. The administration will know how many potential 9th graders, how many potential 10th graders versus 7th and 8th graders potentially for one of these campuses that may transition and merge those groups together.
So I think this is this potentially where somebody could look at the map and say, you can look at the map of the district and you can look at the green and the purple and you go, man, that doesn't make any sense. Just people may look at it, but you're looking at where the numbers are coming from within that map.
That is
and that's
correct.
what this is telling me.
Correct.
And then you're looking at the facilities limit capacities and you're going, that's how I'm drawing, that's the science.
That's how we're evaluating the numbers
Where
in each one of
somebody
those
else-
pockets from one year to the next, giving estimates, but not necessarily just giving ballpark estimates. We're trying to help administration to say, okay, this is based off of what we see related to the trends and the averages that are out there. We would think in 27, 28, 28, 29, this is how many 7th and 8th graders you're going to have and how many 8th and 9th graders you may have that would potentially be at a middle school, high school 377 campus.
And this is just 6, 7, and 8 right now.
Okay.
And so you'll see there in 26, 27, the highlighted yellow, which is the year of the two transitions, you see 0 6th graders over here on the 377 because at that point, they're all still at the 6th grade center. You only have 7th and 8th graders in the 377 campus. And then in 2930, he brings 6th graders back over in anticipation of a potentially second
So,
middle school.
so do we know what that number is though, of those 6th graders that are gonna be, it's not on this chart, right?
It was on this one over here, so 150, 155
Plus 407.
and 407.
So you're basically saying by 2034, 35, we're gonna have a total of 2,719 middle schoolers. Am I reading that
Yes,
correctly?
correct.
Which is would be above a capacity that we would have for both middle schools.
If
You'll
you
see.
have, if
Actually,
you have the
Sixth
sixth,
grade
center,
if you take the sixth grade
center
center
and
into
two middle
account,
schools.
you have
So
capacity.
the way he has this drawn, you don't run out of middle school capacity until we actually get through the 34, 35 school year.
Okay,
If
if.
you agree that the 6th grade center can have 735 kids in it.
Well, we don't get to that point.
Okay.
You get 562, 645, 626, and then it goes to 400, 485.
Okay.
So there's that 2 years it's in the 600s according to this, and then it drops back because you move those kids out. And it stays in the 400s according to his numbers here.
And I would also share whenever we talk about that, when you think back to the numbers that we talked about related to the reports and where we could start to see the district start to level out and start to mature, you're getting into that stage of 33, 34, 34, 35, where some of these numbers should be leveling out, starting to potentially come back down.
It's just a lot of numbers.
It is a lot of numbers.
I'm just gonna have to look at it for a while.
So basically then, if I'm reading this correctly, in 2034-35, the left-hand side, the 407 campus, middle school, you're saying 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, you're gonna have 1,532 students, of which 454 are gonna be at the 6th grade center.
Approximately, yes.
Which means the 407 campus would have to hold between 1,000 and 1,100 kids. Okay.
Correct,
Does
just
that
under
make sense?
1,200.
It's built for 1,200.
It's built for 1,200.
Right.
So yes,
so
it'd be just under that,
And then the other one would be 1187,
which is under the 1,200.
which is under 1,200. Okay, got it.
Okay.
A lot of work.
We've spent a little time on it, so this is going to be the high school version of that, so aligning that middle school and what that potentially would mean for your high school. So if we did take the plan related to the high school logistics in that 27-28 timeframe, we would begin to move your 9th and 10th graders over into that campus. And again, those numbers could potentially change a little bit based off of grandfathering and those kind of things for family members. But that would be the plan. So again, that 27-28 year, when you look at what we're going to be showing related to the next slide, related to more numbers, part of that is evaluating the overall campus capacity at that 377 campus when you evaluate your 7th and 8th graders and your potentially 9th and 10th graders that would be in that zone, how many students as a whole you potentially could have at that campus during those specific years. Again, Highway 377 campus will open in the middle of the UIL alignment, so I want to make sure that that's referenced related to that. Dr. Carpenter, I don't know if you wanted to reference the graduation part after that.
Mm-hmm.
But this does show that by 32-33, you would begin exceeding that capacity at the 377 campus. But I would say as we start to look at the Canyon Falls campus in that 34-35 time frame, we are starting to get where we're just about reaching the capacity. But again, I would still go back and say I think that's going to get us to a good place related to where the district may potentially be related to leveling out, related to overall enrollment. So it wouldn't be far in excess of what that 2,077 number is for 377.
And the red circle is just indicating, the 771 and 894. Well, the 771, that's a 912 number, but you aren't going to start with 912. So that's what it says here, your 912 enrollment number, but in reality, you're going to start with 910, possibly 11th grade option. So Canyon Falls would keep all seniors and all or partial juniors. And then the following year, you matriculate, and so you'll have 2 years of phasing into that. And then that first, the 29-30 years, when you have your first full 9 through 12, all grades, completely full, and you're already over 1,000.
And again, this is related to the high schools, more numbers. And you'll see kind of that overall breakdown again, looking at that key 27-28 year, what that would potentially look like when you look at the enrollment for a freshman and sophomore class related to that Highway 377 campus.
And then if you bring over a partial junior, obviously you would add, juniors into that column, which would change that 447 potentially.
And so again, it's the 29-30 year, which is when we'd have 2 graduating senior classes in each high school.
Unless we did the junior
Unless we
option,
did junior option.
And you'd have a partial, essentially, graduating class. It would be a full one, but you would have yes, correct. Your first full senior class would be in 23.
So if you do a partial, is there a threshold that we say, hey, this many kids have to want to go? Because otherwise you end up with 10 kids.
Yeah, those are all yes, those are all things that we'll have to flesh out. Yes.
There has to be a threshold.
So if there's no junior option, then that first dual high school graduating year, Canyon Falls will have approximately 361 seniors.
Correct.
and the 377 high school have approximately 221,
Correct.
give or
It's
take.
29, 30?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So May of 30, yeah.
And you'll see that's also that year that the 7th and 8th graders would move out coming into that year because you need all the space for your full for 9 through 12.
But still, you do 29, 30, back up 4 years, that's 25.
Yes.
So we potentially would have to have a bond pass sometime in 2025 to have the money to,
For a middle school.
for a middle school to open on time. For all this to, yeah, work.
And when we get done with this portion, I'm gonna go through graduation years and several other pieces, so.
I do like the graduation class sizes, though. They look really nice. 361 and 221. It's good numbers.
And again, this is, the end goal with providing some of these numbers are to provide those estimates by grade so that you have an idea of what your grade group's gonna look like for each one of those campuses.
Right.
And at our leveling out portion, 34, 35, the
Yeah.
377 campus in 34, 35 will have a higher graduation, will have a larger senior class than what we have currently this
Currently.
year.
Yeah,
Yes.
373 kids.
And so you'll see here in the 32, 33 school year, that's when we've got to start looking at, either rezone, like I said earlier, additional capacity somewhere, or third high school options. I mean, at that point, you're running out of space there in the 377 campus. And within 2 years behind it, the Canyon Falls campus.
Well, what I like about what the district is doing here is, when you talk about zoning, I think I mentioned this last week. I mean, zoning wasn't even a part of Argyle in 2017. We had one elementary, one intermediate, middle, high. And then since 2018, I think we've been zoning about every other year. And based on the numbers that you have just shown us, it looks like we're gonna be zoning at every level, elementary school just for the next 5 or 8 years or so, because we're gonna be opening up new schools. And every time you do that, you're gonna be rezoning. And I think from a community standpoint, it's like, if you've opened up 4 elementary schools, and you're about to open up your 5th elementary school, so 4 of those have been opened up since 2018. The natural progression of things is that you're gonna get to the middle school level, and you're gonna have to start zoning at the middle school. And then the natural progression of things is you zone at the high school. And that's just how you see it in just
Yes.
about every district you work for.
Correct.
Start out at the elementary school, goes to the middle school. Here in Argyle, for me, it's interesting because it's like we're running out of capacity at the middle school, at the high school, basically at the same time. When we open up the new middle school in 407, we're out of capacity, which seems, less than ideal. But the truth is when we opened up west, we didn't have any capacity, day one. When we opened up south, we were out of capacity, day one.
Because we're reactive.
When we opened up JRE, we're out of capacity, day one. We're gonna open up the middle school, we're gonna be out of capacity, day one. And I think the last bond was a longer-term vision to address that predicament. It was unsuccessful, and we'll reconvene. But I guess what I like about what you're doing here is you're kind of saying, hey, look, we're coming out with the middle school zones, and we're gonna show you the high school zones at the same time. And it's given the community a lot. This is a pretty long look for zoning. I don't think districts would
No,
traditionally.
it's not, and not in the fast growth districts I've been in.
They don't traditionally put this out there for that far in advance, and so it's a response to a desire for the community to get a visual of what it would look like. And so I appreciate that.
I think we can even do more, right? I mean, if we start, you said, we saw the elementary chart, we're gonna have to have 2 more elementaries. We already know 1, right? But the more we can, zoning is emotional, right? It's gut wrenching for some people, and I get it. But the more we can share long-term vision like this, even from a geographic perspective within the district, hey, this is the next spot that looks geographically suitable. And oh, by the way, there happens to be land that might or might not. That's another big problem we have. Finding land that someone's willing to let go to us, right? That's the other big challenge. So I think if we can start geographically expanding upon this is great. It's a long-term look, like you said, and as speaking to somebody that's been up here a long time, we've never looked this far out and provided this much information. So I think the more we can do to say, hey, this is geographically, this could be the next spot for the next elementary, it allows people to plan. Now, unfortunately, we can't be, it's never hard and fast until we acquire the land, quite frankly, right? And that's proven to be tough. But, you know, like we said, if you're gonna have to rezone even to an additional high school down the road, where might that go? Right? So the more we can share and be forward thinking, I think helps everybody, helps the community prepare the best they can. But again, it's not ever going to be perfect.
No, and I think human instinct is to just look at a picture and go, man, that looks stupid. Why'd you do that? You know, I would draw the colors differently. I'd get my crayons out and do something different. But what you're doing is a little bit more scientific. You know, you're not out there with crayons and saying this looks good and this looks good. You're out there studying the numbers, and that's what that big complicated chart is. Hey, if I colored this color, it's going to do this to the capacities and the numbers. Correct. If I color that color, you did all that analysis and showed it to us. And so, you know, I guess what I want to tell the community is, you know, one of the great things Dr. Carpenter did when she got here is she says, informational only meeting, month, and then it's on the action item. And I think that's what I would tell the community. If you know, this is your opportunity to provide feedback. I'm not making any promises of anything. I just think that that's the great thing that you've done is you're saying, here it is, digest it, ask your questions, give your feedback, give us input, because everybody that looks at this picture is going to have a different opinion. It's going to be looked through a different lens.
Certainly.
The people that live in these different communities and don't.
And I think it's important to reiterate the 7 points that were put at the beginning of this of what lens to look through this, the analysis that was done through those 7, you know, factors.
And I want the community to know if you have questions, you can email Sam about this, and then
or
I mean email us all. But I want to hear it.
We're going to send out,
yeah,
or you can put it in the form we're going to send out.
Or you can put it in I want to hear it, but I want to know from a board standpoint. I'm going to be asked about this in the community, and I'm going to welcome the opportunity to talk about it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Dr. Carpenter and go, hey, what if this is a request I got, and why can you do this or can't you do this? And so sometimes I think people need to know, really, it should be right here. Go right to because it goes right to you. Right? Right. Okay.
The form we'll send out this week, and so we'll collect all of that. We will share all of that with you guys. You know how we did with the elementary, and then we'll answer questions as they come in, and then we'll bring all of that back in December.
Yeah.
So one quick thought, make sure I understand this. So in 2032-33, we are going to be, by current capacity numbers, over capacity at high school, adding both of our campuses together. Is that correct?
In which year, I'm sorry?
2032-33. That's
No.
the year you said we need to start looking at making some decisions.
Right. In
where we're headed.
32-33, you are at 377, but you're not quite at Canyon Falls campus. But you will be within those next 2 years, because you're at 1993 and 1476.
And so neither campus in its current configuration or size capacity can handle all the kids that we have. We're
No.
I mean,
We
we're
have-
going to
We have
have
3,400 seats.
right, and we're going to be at 3762 in 34, 35, which means you're either talking portables or
So can I ask,
expanding or
And we
something.
knew that, that's why it was in the bond package.
Right.
can I ask it in a different way too, right? Is that our current configuration of high schools, other than relieving pressure or updates, we don't need to add capacity based on the current plan or strategy to split when we're splitting.
Correct. We would just have to figure it.
Just relieving the pressure in the hallways
At this campus here.
here.
Correct.
And updating facilities at
Or
377.
being able to give space in the eating at the
Right.
cafe.
But long-term, as they both just said,
Yes.
the current capacities, the two structures we have will not work.
Correct. Just as they won't for the current situation for middle school.
And I think that's why we adjusted the strategic plan earlier from giving an empirical number of 2 campuses to
Right.
multiple campuses. And when the board gets to that point, you're gonna have the latitude to look at what's through those 7 factors minimum of what's best for this district, their children, the children of this district, the community, and whether that's a third high school, whether that's a CTE center, whether that's expansion of the 2 campuses we currently have.
And
That board will be able to come to that decision.
And I'll just, in the interest of transparency, which is a popular word, okay, I just don't necessarily, having had 3 kids in the high school in the last, few years, I don't necessarily subscribe or accept the fact that Canyon Falls campus can handle 2,100 kids.
Not during passing periods.
And I just don't, because I don't, and so, I think that's gonna be a real challenge that's gonna materialize in our community over time. And I think that's one of the things we're trying to address, is to add some more security within the building. I haven't gone back and looked, but it was always 1750. The architect who designed it said it was 1750. When he designed those hallways, it was 1750. When he designed that cafeteria, it was 1750. When he designed that auditorium, it was 1750. I understand if you use all the classroom space and the extracurricular space, you can get 2,100 in a, but that doesn't I don't subscribe to the fact that that's the best way to use that facility.
Right.
And so I believe that campus is gonna be under more pressure than before 2032 and 33, where you see an 1,800 to
Well,
2,000.
26, 27, it's.
Yeah,
79.
That's just, I'm not,
And then just the common spaces and the passing, being
But-
able to pass in the hall, the
But
cafeteria, and the library.
again, you go back to what was on the last bond.
well, no, I understand that. I just want,
We're complaining about that.
I don't know. That's why I think you could potentially, if I'm forecasting out in the future, I think you could see these decisions get bumped up, like, hey, Canyon Falls is busting at the seams. Because I think some people, and I'm kind of one of them, thinks it's running at a pretty good clip right now at 1,650 kids. It's just, I would want to keep an eye on that before we start saying, hey, we're going to use that thing it's 2,100.
But I think you have to look at it through the capacity of what we have. Like, we can't say that this is automatically gonna happen, that we get a bond that passes to expand a campus or add another campus or buy land to build another campus. So you have to look at the facilities you have right here.
The current climate we're in, we're being forced to slam them in there because they're here and the buildings are what they are and we don't have money to expand them and build new wings and stuff. I get it, but I'm not sure that's how we want to really.
Well, I don't think that's
It's
the
not
goal.
right.
I don't think that's the goal.
Yeah.
I think that this is
The reality.
the reality of what we're dealing with. Now, whenever another, bond comes to vote, depending on what's included in that bond, I'm hopeful that it's gonna take care of some of these issues sooner rather than later. hopefully. Now, we'll see what happens. But
Or you
the
reduce-
reality is anytime a bond doesn't pass and you don't have money to do things, you don't have options.
You adjust.
And you adjust. And splitting when we're splitting now was a consequence of the bond in the spring not passing. We lost some of the flexibility that we were talking about before the bond of, do we do this again with that UIL alignment in the 27-28 year or the 29-30? When that didn't pass, we didn't have the opportunity to make some of those expansions. That decision was made for us. So again, I agree with you. You know, I don't ever think of a campus should be running at 100% capacity.
Right.
You want to be as efficient as possible. But when you have common spaces in either of those two high school campuses that are specific to a certain size, even if you can fit more kids in, it's something we may have to do because of lack of putting portables on certain campuses. And we may have to squeeze kids in. We don't want to do that, and that's not the goal or the long-term plan, but it's what we're facing as we sit here tonight.
I mean, I think that the Canyon Falls campus, although you can say, oh, you can maybe do a spoke here, and, you know, a connector thing here. In my opinion, just on the visual of it, the common spaces were never built to hold 4,000 students. I mean, the hallways, they're not there. The cafeteria, anybody that goes during mega lunch knows what the cafeteria looks like nowadays, and we only have 1,650 kids there. And I don't know that there's honestly anything that we can even possibly do to that campus that would allow it to hold more kids efficiently. Because there are so many things that would have to be done to other parts of that building. And for me personally, I wasn't in on any of this, but I don't like the design of it. I don't think it was good for expansion, if you will, down the road with these two spokes and just the way that whole thing is, and that choke point that the kids have to walk through to change classes down there at the end. And we just don't have the capacity.
And that's really probably a conversation for the bond committee going forward and starting next month is, in my, really, what do you want Canyon Falls to function at?
Yeah.
Do you want it to function at the maximum at 2,100 and just keep pounding them in there? Do you want to try to do things that, maybe you can relieve some hallway pressure, but you still have overcrowded cafeterias and, other spaces? Or do you just want to say, hey, let's try to reduce that number? We're now functioning. We know what 1,600 kids looking like in there. Do we want to just kind of design a vision where the campus looks like that? That's what it's going to be. I mean, that's something that I would like a little feedback on. I think you know where I stand. I don't know. I don't think it's at 2,100. I don't think you can get 600 more kids in there or 500 more kids in there.
I don't either. I think it's somewhere in between, but I agree with you that now it's pretty packed as it is.
I don't know. Ms. Knowles, does it feel packed?
Like,
I mean, you're in there. You're in there more than me. I just take a peek every now and then, huh?
And that also becomes a safety issue pretty quickly on several levels. And at 1,600, if we're already, or 1,650, we're already there, it's concerning.
So, are there any other questions for Hudson on the demographer report? Since we've transitioned to bonding.
Are you an architect?
You don't want to take those questions.
I have a little bit of history with all of that, so I certainly have opinions, but would not share any of them at this moment in time.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Hudson. A lot of hard work.
So we kind of have a multi-step agenda item here. Once we went through that, we wanted to be able to talk. We answered a lot of these questions when we were doing our coffee talks this fall during the semester. And so we generated basically what we were hearing to provide information. So we're going to go through middle school and then high school zoning impacts by graduation years. So the charts are going to show graduation years of students, but also where they currently are in their educational journey. So from a middle school standpoint, note at the top, students will continue attending the sixth grade center for their sixth grade year during this time. So this is in the first year or so of the transition. So if you start with your current seventh graders right now, the class of 2030, there's no impact on those students on the middle school transitions. For your current sixth graders, the class of 2031, they will be the eighth graders going into the two middle school transition. So that school year, when they become eighth graders, is the year the two middle schools will transition. So, and you'll see in a little bit on a board policy recommendation that we've got for you to review. Basically, it outlines the highest grade level of a campus would have the opportunity to stay. So a fifth grader, if it was elementary, if we were doing elementary zones, eighth grader, middle school, obviously, and your 11th and 12th graders. The thing that people need to consider is that if you were to stay and you didn't go to your zone middle school in eighth grade, you're now out of alignment with your feeder high school. So that'll just be something that will need to be considered as we move forward. The current fifth graders, class of 2032, will be the seventh graders the year we transition to two middle schools, and they will attend where they are zoned. And the same way fourth graders and third graders and beyond. So that's how it impacts the immediate impact in the year of 26-27, those current grade levels by graduation year. From a high school standpoint, because we've heard this, how will this impact my child for the high school transition in 27-28? If you are in high school right now, this does not impact you. So the current seniors will graduate. Sophomores and juniors right now are not impacted, but the current freshmen, that's the year that the second high school will open as a transition. But they're seniors that year, and so they will stay at Canyon Falls. They will graduate at Canyon Falls over here at the high school. So current freshmen will be seniors that year, and they will all be together finishing as a class at AHS. Then we move into eighth graders and below. So the current eighth graders, the class of 29, they will be the juniors in the year of the two high school transition. This class would technically be slated to stay at the high school if the board passes the policy where it says 11th and 12th and 12th graders can stay. If we have the room and we decide to do the junior option, then the juniors and we have a threshold zoned for 377 could potentially go over there and be a partial junior class. Some of them could potentially go. We'll be working through those details in the coming months going into next year to determine specifically. But that eighth grade class is the junior class. The seventh graders will be the sophomore class that will be slated to attend the high school for which they are zoned, and the sixth graders will be the freshman class. So those are your 9 and 10s. Current sixth graders and seventh graders will be your ninth graders and 10th graders that year that would go to their zoned high school. And then fifth grade and below, everybody falls where they're zoned. So that's how that would impact graduation year class and then your current grade level, where you fall. Do y'all have any questions on those?
I like the chart.
Okay.
It's good for parents.
Okay, so let's talk and then if you like a chart, there's a chart. Hey, I'm a former teacher. Everybody, look at everybody's learning styles. So there it is, all on one page if you want one page.
Cover readers.
I just like to give everybody their style.
You do.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk UIL because we had a lot of these questions. So determining competition levels available to the students at both high schools. Obviously, we are going to prepare to have all of our fine arts, band, UIL academics, athletics, all of those components at both campuses. From a fine arts and band standpoint, those students, the year we open over there, they'll get to compete at the highest level available. There's no time frame that we have to wait. They're able to go ahead and start competing at those levels. Same way for UIL academics, they can compete at the highest level available the minute that campus opens. Athletics is where there's a little bit of difference, and that's because that's the way UIL has it set up. So football's on a 2-year alignment. Every 2 years they realign. Every other sport is technically on a 1-year alignment. Even though it falls in line with the 2 years, there's still a 1-year alignment. So when you open in the middle of an odd year, which is the middle of alignment, your football plays what they consider a JV renegade schedule that first year. They still get to experience some of the things like the band can march. I've seen it happen several places. My own children were part of that experience. And so you've got that going on with football. The following year in the fall of 28, they go into a full 2-year alignment and they're in a full varsity schedule. All other sports programs, the district would intend for all of those to enter into a varsity the first year. However, if depending on student interest, what they coaches felt like they had, they don't have to compete in varsity the first year. They can do sub-varsity only, but they can pick and choose on that. So football has to go into, cannot go into a full 2-year alignment until the following year. Every other sport could potentially play a varsity schedule in 27-28. There's some sample schools listed there. They all have opened just a smidgen difference. Lubbock Cooper opened up with 9th and 10th grader as an option. They're in their first full year of varsity schedule, so they've matriculated up, so they've got a full freshman class, full sophomore class, and they have only a partial junior class right now. Midlothian Heritage opened with 9, 10, and a partial junior class. And then Legacy Ranch High School in Liberty Hill opened with freshmen. Next year they will matriculate up. They'll have 9, 10. They'll be in the middle of an alignment, same thing we would be doing. And then the following year with their juniors and so forth. So those are 3 examples. There's more out there, but those are kind of the common 3. Liberty Hill and Lubbock Cooper are very much following kind of the same pattern and talking to both of their administrations. As far as classifications, I know that's been a question. Classification enrollment numbers are updated annually by UIL. They redo those alignment numbers. They change them a little bit. You can kind of study that. There's a little bit of a pattern. It's not really scientific how they do that, where they set those. But based on our estimates available with Hudson's numbers, we would anticipate the 377 campus, because it opens in the middle of alignment, you use just your 9th and 10th graders, would open up as a larger 3A, small 4A, depending on if we have the junior option. And then once all 4 high school grade levels are there, obviously it would be slated to remain a 4A until it kicks over that threshold, which is about 1,300. And then as far as this campus over here at Canyon Falls, the projection numbers would keep it at a 5A for the foreseeable future.
And that's all subject to change from UIL.
Right. They fluctuate every 2 years a little bit on their numbers. I mentioned a little bit ago about a local board policy. So we have had FDB local, which is intra-district transfers and classroom assignments. It hasn't been detailed quite as much as it probably should be in a district like ours. So we have some examples here of what we would like to potentially add to this, which would be in blue. We would like to spell out a little bit more about our children of district employees. This is what we're currently following. So it would just put that into policy, our practice into policy. Talks about the sibling transfer. So if you're a student that is in that highest grade level and you're going to be over at this campus and your sibling is zoned for the other and they want to stay, they can elect to do that. They just cannot go back and forth. You have to make a decision one time. Transportation is on, those kinds of things. Educational services transfers, and then other transfer requests is where I was talking about, where the student assigned to a new campus as a result of rezoning, if you're in the 5th grade, 8th grade, or 11th and 12th, you would be allowed to stay. Whereas we didn't have that in place last year with all the elementary rezoning. This would give us a policy that would allow us to stick with that, follow that, and people would know going into it where their kids fall in that. And then, of course, just the opportunity to revoke a transfer if deemed necessary. So those are some things that we'll come back to you in December as well, but that is FDB local that we can consider. You can consider, for adopting as policy to help just streamline that and provide more clarity to what those parameters would be. And then finally, we have been working on a webpage that I was telling some people the other day that when I first got here, Mr. Deffenbaugh was great about providing a lot of historical context for me and being able to really study what the district had gone through and where we were and kind of where we were headed. Spent some time really looking through that folder a few weeks ago and just working with our communications team and our administrative team, thinking we really needed to tell that story from a website standpoint so that families, whether they live here, can go back and learn about it, or whether they want to move here, they have a place to go and study what we are and what we're doing. And so this website will launch this week, but essentially it goes into about 5 different parts. It talks about our story, where you'll see, I know Mr. Heron there, thank you, sir. He's going to go back, it goes back and it talks about where it all started. And it goes through and kind of builds a picture and a narrative of from that time to where we are current day.
That was Mr. Hawksworth's class picture, right?
Thanks for sharing that with Rick.
Showing up, yeah.
And then it has a section about our values and achievements. So if it goes into the mission and vision that the board adopted in September, that's provided to the collaborative visioning committee that we're working with right now. But then also just our history of excellence and all the areas that this district has excelled for many, many years, and gives credit to those that have been in this district and have built that foundation. So those are just kind of the value. And then adapting to growth. This section goes into understanding our trends, all the growth facilities plans, so you can click down on these, you can study kind of where we are, talk about our facilities plans, our future strategies and priorities, just the growth planning for campuses in general, bond overviews, so all the history of the bonds since 2017, and then what we're considering from growth and facilities consideration. So it goes into the elementaries, the middles, the highs, and what we're currently seeing with our demographer information. And then it has a section on our current path and future vision. So this outlines essentially what we've discussed tonight, our process right now in 2024, where we go in 25, where we go in 26, and where we would go in 2027. And then finally, from all of our community meetings and different places we've been, we've collected a lot of FAQs. And so we've put those we've themed those into transition logistics, into naming mascots, colors, and culture, from a staffing, teachers, and some of these don't have great descriptive answers yet because we're not there. All of these things have methodical processes behind them and timing that we believe are important. And then you've got just student, parent, community involvement, and then additional considerations. Those are the types of questions we've been answering a lot of, and they're great questions, and so we've included them all here.
I have some questions.
Let's add them to them, write them down.
When we transition to 2 middle schools, do you have any concerns or fears or doubts whether both middle schools and the students in those schools will be able to have a full middle school experience?
Not at all.
Do you, I mean, in the sense that we're going to be able to teach the traditional, typical middle school subjects and offerings?
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And
clubs, all the things that they're used to having, because a lot of times clubs are student-driven anyway.
do you have any concerns about whether we will be able to provide those students with the traditional, customary extracurriculars in those middle schools?
No.
Are you concerned at all that you will be able to attract and retain teachers to be in either one of those middle schools?
I don't think so. We have not had, the history is that we have not had that issue with elementary at all, because teachers they have a choice. They'll have a choice. We'll do a transfer process, and we start with those that want to go or want to be somewhere.
And you believe that both those middle schools will be attractive places to work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And as it relates to high schools, I mean, understanding we'll have 2 high schools, do you have any doubts about whether or not this district will be able to provide high school students with wonderful educational experiences in English, math, science, history, AP courses, and a variety of electives?
Not concerned about that.
Do you have any concerns about whether either one of these high schools will be able to attract and retain teachers that would like to be in that environment?
No, because again, I think your teachers have some choice there, and those that want to be in a smaller environment or a larger environment or whichever it is, they're going to have some choice behind that.
Have you seen schools of these sizes, middle schools and high schools, function successfully in other districts and other areas across the state and county?
Yes, I have seen them. I have lived in one. I have sent my kids through this experience in one, and I have worked through it.
And if you thought it couldn't be done well, and if you thought it couldn't be done successfully, would you be recommending it?
No, not at all. Okay. And there are success.
Your witness. Any further
and there
questions,
are success.
You have white hair, you can be Matlock.
There are success stories and there are growing pains.
Yes.
No matter which district has gone through this. You will find some that find success quickly. You will find some that find success after they work for it a little bit. But no matter what, you're going to find success along the way. It happens faster for some than others.
And my life experience tells me that kids typically adjust well and do fine.
Mhm.
And that parents can sometimes struggle with the change, including myself. And that's what my life experience has been in youth sports.
Sure.
And it's been elsewhere, is that the kids are usually fine, and you put them in environments that they can thrive, but the parents can get upset.
So I can give you a very specific example. We had our first Superintendent Advisory Council with our students. I mentioned that earlier, in October, 7th through 12th graders. And we opened the floor and we just said, ask us what's on your mind. We didn't give them prompts, we didn't give them topics, we just let them talk and ask us. And lots of great questions about transitioning to the two high schools specifically, because these kids are going, that would be the age group they are. And they asked lots of questions, and they asked questions about academic opportunities, extracurricular opportunities, band, sports. And we got to the end of it, and I looked at Dr. Jordan and I said, do you know what they did not ask us? Not one student asked us what the mascots and colors were going to be.
Yeah.
Because that's not what's on their mind. Their mind is what are my opportunities going to be? What's my experience going to be like?
Sure.
Interesting.
And I thought that was pretty telling to us where the kids' minds are. It's very eye-opening for us.
Well, I appreciate all the effort you and your staff have put into putting all this together. I mean, in Hudson, thank you for all the effort you went to putting this out and just giving it to the community. And you know, it can be, look, change can be difficult, but it can also be exciting. And you can make it what you want. You can make it miserable, or you can look at it. It's just a matter of perspective.
I would choose this challenge over declining enrollment and shutting down schools any day.
There you go.
Right. As you look at Louisville ISD,
As
who
a lot
has
of my superintendent cohort.
20 schools potentially that they're going to shutter.
I think it's also important, yes, thank you for all the work you guys have done, all of you, but it's not over.
No.
And I know you weren't insinuating
No.
that, but there's a lot more to be done. And it takes time to do it and to be prepared to do it right in the time frame of the split, right? There's a lot to do still, so
Correct.
thank you for what you've done and what you're going to do. Thank you.
And I'll echo that. And I also want to say I really appreciate that you're getting the information out early enough to the community and to the parents for them to absorb this, to think about it. And if they want to choose or make a decision one way or the other about what they want to do about their child's schooling, it's their choice. But it's not a surprise. They know it's coming. They know. I love your chart. You know, if you're a current fifth grader, this is what your life's. You know, this is what's going to happen. Current eighth grader, this is what's going to happen. And I think that's very important because I've talked to a couple of parents who have asked that. You know, I'm trying to figure out how is it going to affect my child. And I'm really excited to see that there because I think that'll help ease a lot of concerns. And you know, knowledge is power. And so, you know, when you have it, even though initially you might think, ooh, I don't know, because it's change. Change doesn't always sit well with everybody. But I think the fact that, or I know the fact that you're putting this out now only gives them knowledge, which gives them power, which gives them choice. And I think it's great. You guys have done all your charts.
It's a team effort, and everyone has spent a lot of time. Where people may not see it, there is a lot of things going on, and a lot of conversations and strategies being done. And I've even had, you know, I'll be at a basketball game or a volleyball game, or I've had staff come up to me and say, okay, my kids are this grade and this grade, or not in school yet. Tell me how this worked for your own kids. Like they're asking me as a parent, which I appreciate because that's a completely different perspective for me than sitting right here. And so I think there's value and merit in asking those questions and saying, put your mom hat on. What did this look like for your kids?
Right.
Okay, put your community member hat on. How was that experience? And so I think there's a lot to offer there, and I appreciate them asking and talking through that because, you know, a lot of times it's just fear. Dr. Burton told us that, you know, he was in Rockwall when they opened Heath, and he's been a great mentor along the way, working even with Coach Rogers and Mr. Bird to say, you know, there's that grieving first that you have to go through, And then you're like, okay, this is what we're doing. You know, the decision's been made. Now what do we need to do to make this successful? And so I appreciate that mentorship from him so that he can help all of us, wherever our minds are, work through.
And I want people to also know, we hear there are lots of different camps out there.
Mm-hmm.
There are camps that say, do it faster, rip the Band-Aid off. We want it done. We've talked about it long enough, and I'm relying on you to say, hey, this is the best way to do it. We think, this is the most successful way to do it. Puts us in a position to be successful. I hear the camp that says delay it. And I want people to understand that, a lot of the delay camp comes out of they have a kid impacted by that chart, and they're in that window, and they're saying push it off. And I hear you. I have a 5th grader. I think Leanne has kids, Leanne has kids. So there's no way to structure this to avoid Leanne. No, but what I want to tell my delay parents is I'm just trading you for someone else. If I just delay it, I'm going to get the 2029 class and the 2030 class. Then they're going to be saying delay it. And the disconnect, if there is one, it's that as I view my role is I got to look at the whole district. I can't look at just one class or one family or one kid and say, how does it impact it? I got to look at it just what's in the best interest of the district and all the students in the district, and looking at our facilities and what Mr. Hudson's presenting to us. And I can't make a decision, go, man, that's going to be really hard on the 28 class. So we should put that on the 29 class. So I mean.
Well, and again, like, we're taking a lot of information, pouring through it, but ultimately looking at the expertise from our administration and what they've gone through and what they see and what they feel is best educationally for our kids across all areas. So.
Thank you all very much for the discussion.
Thank you for all the information. We get our month now to digest.
That's right.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay. This one won't be as long of a discussion, I don't think. This is from our...
We're going to hold you to that.
Yes. This is an item from our 22 bond. Part of that bond was allocated for a furniture refresh at 2 of our older campuses, that being the 377 campus and Hilltop Elementary. So we've worked with we've taken some current bids, we've looked at previous bids on areas that we don't quite have the bids on yet, to try and come up with what we feel like is an actual current day budget of what that's going to cost and all the areas that need to be refreshed. This covers instructional and office furniture. There's a couple of exceptions in the campuses that I can tell you where we've looked at, for example, library shelving, right? You might have some library shelving that shelving is going to be good for another 20 to 30 years, right? We're not at its life expectancy, so we've excluded that from this discussion. So we've tried to look at it as we're not going to go in and just replace everything just to replace it, but what actually needs to be replaced. So the best thing that I can tell you is just any instructional or office furniture that's in the buildings. And we feel like it'd be maximum not to exceed of $1,550,000 will cover the 2 buildings. The original budget for that was $2 million, so it's well within that budget. And we plan on doing the refresh this summer while the buildings are unoccupied. And then we'll bring this back to you as an action item next month. But do you have any specific questions on that?
Do the existing furniture, do we get 20 cents on the dollar somewhere, or what do we?
Yeah, we'll put it up. Our current plan is to put it up for auction. Anything that we feel like might be of use for us, maybe there's some desks or some chairs that are good that we would have to store. We cannot store, we don't have the space to store all of it, so we will have to put auctions. And that timing is going to be important, because if you've got a whole building worth of furniture coming in, we've got to move the other out pretty quickly. So we'll have some auctions going on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Jordan.
Hello. Bringing you 22 new courses to consider, bringing you this a month earlier than I did last year. Our counselors start meeting with parents and students in January, so they felt like it would be really useful to have courses approved before that time. So you'll see the first two classes are Calculus and World History at Honors. The rest of the classes are mostly CTE, and they're going to fall in two different categories. Lots of practicums. So those are those work-related experience, unpaid work-related experience. And then the other half of them, or the other part of them, are classes that we may already be offering or want to offer that fit into the CTE TEAC. So it makes sense. For example, on page 4, there's middle school. Those two classes right there, the interpersonal studies and the professional communications, are each a semester class. That's a leadership class. So that's what they're already teaching, but when we code them as CTE, then that provides additional benefits to our budget when the teachers may have to add in a few extra TEACs. Maybe they weren't including before, but that's the class that they were already teaching. They're adding a newspaper class. So that fits into a graphic design curriculum. So being able to recode some classes we already have, but lots of practicums there as our students matriculate up to the level 3 and level 4 classes. As we're growing this, we want to have these opportunities for practicums for them available, career prep. So once again, this is student driven of what our students choose, but knowing that the pathways our current students are on, we're looking ahead to what classes they may be interested in January when they start making those choices and continue them on in those CTE pathways where they've already started. What questions do you have for me?
So this is just kind of rebranding some we're already doing.
There are a few of them,
putting them
yes.
into the CTE realm.
Correct.
Maybe a little bit of tweaking of
Mhm.
TEAC stacks or whatever.
Right.
And then are some of them just adding into threads that we already have?
Yes.
It's like the next class.
Yeah, for example, the law enforcement, there's an additional law enforcement class, so that doesn't mean hiring another teacher, just that those kids are now on that level of CTE.
Okay.
And the same thing with a lot of the practicum placements.
Okay.
Is it hard to find CTE teachers?
We haven't had a problem so far. A lot of what is happening is where we have current teachers who are already there who have this level of extra expertise, such as the digital design, digital audio, and they're adding another course to their repertoire, what they're already offering. But we've brought in some people from the workforce who don't have the traditional teaching background. They're coming from the workforce, such as our culinary teacher is a culinary professional who is teaching those classes.
And we can do that because of District of Innovation?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Yeah. So if you decide to teach legal studies, we have a place for you, Mr. Westrom.
Yeah.
Poor kids.
Yes.
Good thing you didn't say ethics. Ethics.
I hear people say this, and I don't even know, I don't know, I need your answer right now. I just want to put this thought in your head. I hear people say, because probably the same people that are in my ear, you probably hear from too, is that CTE courses are somewhat discounted by college admissions because they're not, I mean, they look more at your core subjects and AP courses than they will CTE. Do you have?
I don't know that to be true,
Okay.
no. But the other thing is our students have, because we're on that 7-period day, they have plenty of opportunity to take all the advanced classes and CTE classes that their little heart desires, especially if they don't have
It's kind of a supplement.
Mhm.
Yes.
If they want to, great.
Yeah.
But we're not, they don't, I mean, the way the state, when we used to be on a 4x4 graduation plan, then the state moved to a different graduation plan. And so there is, with the CCMR and accountability, obviously the state's pushed districts into a position to really focus on CTE because that is part of accountability now, and it's part of the CCMR. So there's a lot of reasons why that has become a more popular push, if you will, in high schools to look at. But, students still have a lot of options, and if that's not their pathway, one of the endorsements is a multidisciplinary, so they may not even choose a CTE pathway, and that's okay.
So
We
you're
are
not
not
saying we're
pushing them to this.
sacrificing, by
No.
adding these courses,
No.
we're not sacrificing traditional core subjects in
Enhancing
any way or any
opportunities.
courses.
Absolutely not. We have more than 18 dual credit and AP classes. Each of those are double digits offerings for our students, and we had one other one here, so we're continuing to add those as well.
So when you source from students to find student interest, do you just give them a list of classes that they choose from and these are the top ones, or do they give you general topics like I'm interested in like child development and you find classes that fit under those specific subjects?
So they haven't requested classes yet, but a lot of these classes were requested by teachers.
Okay.
And so the teachers are talking to the students. For example, the art program wanted to offer an Art 2 that had more digital animation. And so they're like, our kids are interested in this. They went to Mrs. Lumsden and found a CTE course that fit what she wanted to teach based on what the students were telling her they were interested in teaching. And so it's a kind of a combination of a lot of things. Our students do an interest inventory as well that they're getting ready to do. So that will drive some of it, but a lot of it is driven by the kids sitting in the seats in these classes right now, talking to their teachers about what they're interested in, and that's how these classes are developed.
And that's great. I just know what my middle school boys' brains were like, and I don't know. I mean, is there any parental input sought about that as well? Like, hey, what would we like to see your kids? What would you like to see your kids' career paths be, or whatever? I mean,
We've had quite a few parents who said, I love my child to take Latin, and we have 0 kids that have requested Latin.
But that's also part of
So-
our collaborative visioning
It
process.
is.
So that community input there will help us set our goals and objectives
Yeah.
and action steps moving forward as well.
We've had that request several times this year, and so we will be sending out questionnaires so parents can have their input. But the bottom line is the kids do make their course selections, and we're hoping that they're going home and talking to their parents about that. And parents can make appointments to talk with their child and their counselor at any time to have those discussions. But the counselors are making sure that they're taking everything they need for their future goals. But we want them to love to be at school too and have choices around their passions.
And you mentioned that having a 7-period day is advantageous to be able to take these, have these options for the kids.
We have
in many ways.
Yeah, we have students who are going into their senior year who have completed most of their requirements for graduation. And because they have taken some middle school classes also where they have earned credit. And so they have space in their schedule to take AP, dual credit, CTE, and all of the above.
So both our high schools in the future will be 7-period day high schools.
That is the most efficient model for us to run, yes.
Okay. And it gives them most opportunity. Okay.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
All right. Action.
Yep. And these items will all be things that you heard last month, except for DCAD. Should be.
Say it that way.
All right, tonight I'm bringing you the recommendations for our new architectural RFQ, request for qualifications, that we issued earlier this year. Just a reminder, we had 18 firms respond. The ones we're bringing to you to recommend be available to us for services on projects in the future are those that scored 90% or higher on their evaluations, so they're highlighted below. That would be Corrigan, Huckabee, PBK, Pfluger, VLK, and WRA. So 5 of these are actually already on the approved list that we've been using. And with this most recent RFQ, that added a 6th, which is Pfluger.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve action item 10A as presented.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Western, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Slayton, second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you. And maybe the best one tonight, I don't know. I am bringing you some money back. So this is our final change order, final accounting on Jane Russman Elementary School, which our GMP was $43 million in change. I don't remember exactly. But at the end of it, with all the reconciliation on buyout and contingencies and allowances, we're able to return a little over $420,000 back to the 22 bond. So this would be approval of the final change order returning that amount, and in this case there is no time extension request on this final change order, since we were able to finish it about a month before their actual substantial completion date by contract.
Awesome. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item 10B as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Matthew Slayton, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Leanne Artho, second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I just seen action.
So just I move? Would be-
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to consider and approve a resolution canvassing the returns and declaring the results of a tax ratification election. I mean, did I read it exactly how it was?
Pretty close. So
Okay.
moved.
All right. Mr. Matthew Slayton with a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hawksworth with a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. No, on this one.
Oh, you don't have it?
Still gotta do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you should have it up in just a couple of minutes, but this is a technicality that we have to do after canvassing the election. We need to adopt a new tax rate, because the tax rate that was adopted in August called for the Vader, and since that failed, we are reverting back to the old tax rate, but it actually requires a action item with that. But we do need to wait for that to come up. Let me know. Yeah, it'll take just a minute. It's technically it's a 0.0. It's 0.23 of a penny decrease over last year's tax rate, which is based on the required compression through the state's M&O calculation. We have some required wording on the motion, so we will wait on that to come up so that you can have the wording. But it does go to the M&O tax rate that would be there without the Vader, and it stays, the INS tax rate stays at 50 cents.
No?
Not yet? Okay.
If we
Go to
need
the next item.
Do
You
we
want
wanna
to go to that and
chips
come back to it?
dips?
Okay.
Chips and dips.
Sips and dips,
It-
right?
Hungry.
Sips and dips. So this is our last year of this campus improvement plan that we have been using for the last several years. Collaborative visioning is off and underway, and so we'll be adopting a new plan for next school year. What I presented last month for information only, there's been no changes to any of those district or campus improvement plans for 24-25. You have any questions about those? Okay,
I'll
thank you.
entertain a motion to approve action item 10E as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Hawksworth, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. McDowell with the second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Liz, welcome back.
Yeah, sorry about that. We'll try that again. So the total tax rate is 1.2099. The M&O rate is the one that has decreased slightly over last year, and it's to 0.7099. The motion is required very specific language that I provided for you that has the tax rate and the percentage in there. The way you get a percentage increase, even though it's a decrease in the tax rate, is because it's compared to the no new revenue rate that's required with the truth in taxation calculation. And so even though it's a lower tax rate, it technically is, under those calculations, a 5% increase in the tax rate. And that just has to do with the truth in taxation calculations.
So even though we added 0.77, we're decreasing it 0.23?
Well, the 0.77 didn't pass.
Right.
So we're back to the actual M&O rate from last year with the required compression from the state. So we're back to our MCR, our maximum compressed rate, that's calculated through the funding formula, and we can add on to the additional pennies that we had previously approved back in 2012. So it does come down to a slight decrease.
But we're gonna say it's an increase.
We have to say it's an increase
That's
based on the no new revenue rate that's from the truth in taxation calculation. And I did talk to the attorneys about that, and it is, and some other agencies, and that is required language.
So if the Vader had passed, what would it have been?
If the Vader had passed, it would have been 7.7 pennies in it. So it would have been the 1.2099 plus 7.7 pennies.
Okay, all right. Okay.
All right.
Wow. Okay.
All right, I'll entertain a motion that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 1.2099, which is effectively a 5% increase in the tax rate.
Motion to approve.
All right, Mr. Western, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Matthew Slate with second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
You have to read it?
Hold on.
Mm-mm.
We got the campus thing.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Yep. Oh, okay. Do we need to have Mr. Matthew Slayton read this?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. A resolution by the Board of Trustees of Argyle Independent School District exercising their right to cast votes for candidates in the election of the Denton Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. And whereas the Argyle Independent School District is a member of the Denton Central Appraisal District and is entitled to cast 105 in the election of the Board of Directors in accordance with 6.03 of the Texas Property Tax Code, and whereas each voting unit must cast its votes by resolution and submit it to the Chief Appraiser before December 15th, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved by Argyle Independent School District as follows. The Argyle Independent School District casts votes accordingly as represented below. 105 votes for Mike Hennifer.
So, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item 10F as presented.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Western, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. McDowell with second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Thank you. The time is 8:49 p.m. and we are adjourned.